Book 2, The Western Dragon Seal. Chapter 1, Snow Beyond the Capital. The capital still smelled of smoke when Lin Yao left it. 3 days had passed since the Heavenly Bell rang awake above the broken furnace. 3 days since demon ancestor Luo was dragged back beneath the earth. 3 days since Yue Qian died beneath the weight of his own lies, and the emperor knelt before the truth he had spent half his life avoiding. 3 days was not enough time for a dynasty to heal. It was barely enough time for people to learn which ruins were safe to stand near. The furnace square had been sealed. The astronomical bureau had been stripped of its banners. Priests who once walked through the palace with untouchable arrogance now waited in chains for questioning. Ministers who had praised Yue Qian in public were suddenly discovering old illnesses that required them to remain at home. Fear had changed clothes again. Lin Yao recognized it easily. This time, it wore loyalty. She stood at the western gate of the capital in plain white traveling robes, a fur-lined cloak over her shoulders, and one streak of white hair tucked behind her ear. The golden chain mark around her wrist lay hidden beneath her sleeve, but she could feel it pulse with every distant vibration of the heavenly bell. The bell was quiet. Too quiet. That was why she was leaving. On the morning after the demon was sealed, the bell had shown her snow. A ruined western fortress. Wei Han's black banner torn in half. A dragon seal pulsing beneath stone. And a voice colder than mountain wind saying, "The western guardian has fallen." Lin Yao had not slept since. Wei Han stood beside her, armored for travel instead of court. His left arm was still bandaged from the battle at the furnace square, but he had refused to remain in the capital another day. "You could still send someone else," he said. Lin Yao looked at him. "You have said that 6 times. I intend to make it 7. The bell showed your banner. The bell also once showed you a furnace. And it was right." Wei Han had no answer for that. Beyond the gate, 200 riders waited beneath black border banners. They were not the full strength of the Wei army. The emperor would not allow that many soldiers to leave the capital while the court was still bleeding secrets. But these 200 were Wei Han's own men, the ones who had followed him through the nightmare bells and survived. They watched Lin Yao differently from how the court watched her. The court looked at her and saw danger wearing a title. The soldiers looked at her and saw the person their general had chosen to follow into a demon's mouth. That was not trust yet, but it was a beginning. Behind Lin Yao, the emperor approached with only 2 attendants. The crowd at the gate lowered itself at once. Thousands of citizens knelt along the road, not perfectly, not in courtly silence, but with the messy sincerity of people who had woken from nightmares and needed someone to believe in before fear returned. Lin Yao did not turn until the emperor stopped beside her. "The western road is dangerous this season," Emperor Shen said. "So I have heard. The passes may already be frozen. Then we will ride before they close." He looked at her profile. She felt his gaze land on the white streak in her hair. Neither of them mentioned it. Some prices did not need to be counted aloud. The emperor held out a small jade case. "Your mother's name has been restored to the ancestral records." Lin Yao looked at the case but did not take it. "Good." He swallowed. "I thought you would want to see the decree. I will read it when I return." "If I return." Neither of them said that either. The emperor's hand lowered slowly. For one moment, the old habit returned. The courtly distance, the throne protecting itself from the daughter it had failed. Then Emperor Shen said, quietly enough that only Lin Yao and Wei Han heard, "I do not know how to be your father anymore." Lin Yao looked at him then. He sounded honest. That still made her wary. Honesty was not redemption. It was only a door someone could still choose not to walk through. "Then start by being a better emperor," she said. His face tightened. But he nodded. "I will try." Lin Yao studied him for one breath longer, then accepted the jade case. Not forgiveness. Not reconciliation. A receipt. The past had been named. That mattered. Asu stood near the carriage with red eyes and a travel bundle twice the size necessary. "Princess," she whispered, "are you certain I cannot come?" The capital needs someone honest inside the palace. I am not powerful. That is why I trust you. Asu burst into tears immediately. Wei Han looked away, pretending interest in his horse. Badly. Lin Yao placed one hand on Asu's shoulder. Watch the cold palace records. Make sure the forgotten women receive names, not only funeral smoke. And if court officials try to remove anything from my mother's old rooms, send word through Captain Luo. Asu wiped her face with her sleeve. Yes, princess. Also eat properly. This made Asu cry harder. Lin Yao decided she had done enough emotional damage for one morning and turned toward her horse. The crowd bowed lower as she mounted. Someone called her guardian princess. Then another voice repeated it. Then another. The title rolled through the gate like a wave. Guardian princess. Guardian princess. Lin Yao sat very still in the saddle. In book 1 of her life, people had whispered unlucky princess until the words became a death sentence. Now they whispered guardian, as if reverence were safer than hatred. It was not. Both turned a person into a symbol. Both could become a furnace if enough people believed the symbol mattered more than the life inside it. Wei Han rode up beside her. Ready? No. He looked at her. She gathered the reins. Ride. The western gate opened. Lin Yao left the capital without looking back. For the first 2 days, the road carried them through villages still sending offerings toward the city. People placed bowls of rice, paper bells, and strips of red cloth at crossroads, praying for the heavenly bell to keep sleeping now that it had awakened. Lin Yao did not correct them. The bell was not a god. But people who had survived terror often needed gratitude to have somewhere to go. By the 3rd day, the fields gave way to low hills. By the 5th, the air sharpened. By the 7th, snow began falling where no snow should fall. Wei Han reined in his horse and held out one gloved hand. White flakes melted against his palm. Too early, he said. How early? 2 months. The soldiers muttered behind them. Lin Yao looked west. The sky ahead had turned the color of old iron. Clouds moved against the wind, gathering into a spiral above the distant mountains. Her wrist mark pulsed. Once. Twice. Then the heavenly bell answered from far behind them in the capital. So faint only Lin Yao could hear it. Dong. The snow stopped falling around her horse. Not everywhere. Only around her. Flakes drifted toward her, slowed, and melted into gold sparks before touching her cloak. Wei Han saw it. So did every soldier behind them. No one spoke. Then a rider appeared on the road ahead. At first, Lin Yao thought he was alive. The horse walked steadily from the curtain of snow, hooves dragging through white mud. Its mane was frozen stiff. Its eyes were wild, but it did not stop. The man on its back sat upright because he had been tied to the saddle. His armor was Western. His face was blue with cold. Dead. One hand was frozen around a command, token made from a single dark scale. Not metal. Not jade. Dragon scale. Wei Han dismounted before the horse fully stopped. He pried the token from the dead man's hand and stared at the mark carved into it. His face changed. Lin Yao swung down from her horse. What is it? Wei Han did not answer at once. The snow thickened. The dead messenger's lips cracked open. Everyone froze. From the corpse's mouth came a voice that was not human. Return the Oathbreaker to the western gate. The dragon scale token split in Wei Han's hand. Blood welled from his palm. And in the distance, beyond the snow-dark road, something vast roared beneath the mountains. Chapter 2, The Fortress That Would Not Open. Stormbreak Fortress was built into the side of a mountain, like a fist driven into stone. Its outer walls rose black against the snow, layered in 3 defensive rings, each one scarred by old siege fire and dragonclaw carvings. Iron watchtowers leaned over the pass. Frozen banners snapped from battlements, their edges stiff with ice. Above the main gate hung the Wei family crest. A black hawk gripping a broken spear. Wei Han looked at it for a long time. He had not spoken much since the dead messenger opened its mouth. Return the Oathbreaker to the Western Gate. No one had needed to ask who the message meant. The dragon scale token had split in his hand and drawn blood. The storm had answered his name. For the next 4 days, the road had become increasingly hostile. Snow buried their tracks within minutes. Horses screamed at empty ridgelines. Twice, the company heard wings beating above the clouds, but nothing appeared when they looked up. On the 5th night, one of Wei Han's scouts dreamed of walking into a green gold gate and woke with frost on his eyelashes. By the 6th day, every soldier knew the West was not welcoming them. It was judging them. Lin Yao rode beside Wei Han as Stormbreak Fortress came fully into view. You grew up here. Until I was 12. You did not mention it was cheerful. He glanced at her. The corner of his mouth moved. Not quite a smile. Progress, perhaps. It looked warmer in summer. That is difficult to believe. It was not much warmer. The soldiers behind them relaxed slightly at the exchange. Lin Yao let them. Men riding toward a hostile fortress needed to hear their general still knew how to answer dryly. As they approached the first gate, horns sounded from the wall. Not welcome horns. Warning. Archers appeared above the battlements, hundreds of them, bows drawn, black winter cloaks snapping around their shoulders. Wei Han lifted one hand, stopping the company outside arrow range. A voice called from the gate tower. State your name and command. Wei Han's face turned unreadable. Wei Han, commander of the Northern Imperial Detachment, son of Duke Wei Zhen, returning by order of the Emperor with guardian Princess Lin Yao. Silence followed. Not surprised silence. Prepared silence. Lin Yao felt it immediately. The fortress had known they were coming, and had decided in advance not to open. A man stepped onto the gate platform. He was broad-shouldered, gray-haired, and dressed in dark armor trimmed with wolf fur. A scar cut from one temple to his jaw, pulling his expression into a permanent look of contempt. Commander Mokang, acting Lord of Stormbreak Fortress. Lin Yao knew his name from Wei Han's reports. Loyal veteran, held the Western Pass after Duke Wei Zhen's death, commanded respect among border troops, distrusted court officials. The kind of man the capital called useful when the border was quiet and dangerous when it was not. Mokang looked down from the wall. General Wei, he said, you bring imperial banners to a sealed fortress. Wei Han's voice remained steady. I bring an imperial decree. The West has received many decrees from the capital. Most arrive late, some arrive dead. The soldiers on the wall muttered approval. Wei Han said, open the gate. Mokang's gaze moved to Lin Yao. So this is the Bell Princess. The title traveled along the battlements. Bell Princess. Not guardian. Not savior. Something colder. Lin Yao lifted her eyes to him. Commander Mo. I hear you expose the Astronomical Bureau. Some of it. I hear the Emperor knelt to you. Briefly. I hear the Heavenly Bell obeys your blood. Lin Yao felt Wei Han look at her. Mokang spread his hands. Then prove it. The snow moved around them like listening smoke. Wei Han's voice hardened. Commander. Mokang ignored him. The West has seen enough capital tricks. 3 winters ago, Duke Wei returned with a royal seal and told us the dragon seal was stable. That night, half the lower fortress died. Then a woman murdered him and the court sent condolences written on warm paper. His eyes narrowed. If Guardian Princess Lin Yao carries true artifact authority, let the Heavenly Bell recognize her before Stormbreak opens its gate. The archers held steady. Lin Yao understood the trap. If she refused, the soldiers would call her another capital fraud. If she tried to summon the Heavenly Bell from this far away and failed, she would look weak. If she succeeded, she might frighten an already hostile fortress into violence. Power was rarely most dangerous when it failed. It was dangerous when frightened people saw it succeed. Wei Han leaned toward her. You do not have to answer this. I know. Lin Yao. She looked at the gate. At the Black Hawk crest. At the soldiers who had buried friends under snow and been told by the capital to remain loyal. At Mokang, who stood like a wall that had learned to hate doors. Then she raised her left hand. The golden chain mark surfaced around her wrist. Every bow on the wall shifted. Lin Yao did not call the bell. She listened. That was the difference Yue Qian had never understood. Artifacts were not dogs. They were old powers with old wounds, and command without listening became another kind of corruption. The mark pulsed once. Far behind them, beyond mountains and roads and the damaged capital, the Heavenly Bell answered. Dong! The sound did not roll across the sky. It arrived beneath the snow. The ground under Stormbreak Fortress trembled. Frost slid from the walls in glittering sheets. The archers staggered. Horses dropped their heads. The Wei family crest above the gate split down the middle, revealing older carvings beneath the black paint. Not a hawk. A dragon coiled around a broken spear. Mo Kang's face changed. Then the fortress war drums sounded by themselves. Boom. 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 One by one, every drum inside Stormbreak began to beat. No hands touched them. No soldiers stood beside them. The sound grew until the mountains seemed to have a heartbeat. Wei Han went pale. That is not the bell. Lin Yao looked toward the second ring of walls. Deep inside the fortress, behind layers of stone and iron, something green-gold awakened. The western dragon gate cracked. The crack began at the base of the inner mountain wall, invisible to most of the soldiers outside, but Lin Yao saw it through the golden chain mark. Stone split open in the shape of an eye. Then a roar rolled through Stormbreak. The horses screamed. Men on the wall fell to their knees. Snow exploded upward from the ground in a ring around Lin Yao and Wei Han. Mo Kang gripped the battlement. What did you do? Lin Yao lowered her hand. I answered your question. His eyes were no longer contemptuous. They were afraid. Afraid men were more dangerous than arrogant ones. Mo Kang lifted his fist. For one moment, Lin Yao thought he would order the archers to fire. Then another voice shouted from inside the fortress. The snow prison. The words carried over the wall. The prisoner is bleeding gold. Every soldier on the battlements turned. Mo Kang's face went rigid. Wei Han's head snapped up. What prisoner? Mo Kang did not answer. The main gate began to open. Not smoothly. Not in welcome. Like a jaw unclenching against its will. Lin Yao looked at Wei Han. His face had gone colder than the storm. There is only one prisoner in Stormbreak whose blood matters to the dragon seal, he said. Who? The gates opened fully. From inside the fortress came a woman's scream. Not fear. Ray. Wei Han's hand closed around his sword. Shen Qianxue, he said, the woman who murdered my father. Chapter 3, The Woman in the Snow Prison. Stormbreak Fortress did not cheer when Lin Yao entered. It watched. Soldiers lined the inner road in rows of black armor and winter cloaks. Some bowed to Wei Han, though not deeply enough to hide resentment. Almost none bowed to Lin Yao. Their eyes followed the white streak in her hair, the mark hidden beneath her sleeve, the capital silk at the edge of her traveling robes. To them, she was not the guardian princess. She was the emperor's answer arriving after the question had already frozen to death. Lin Yao did not blame them. But she did count the archers on every wall. Trust was unnecessary. Awareness was not. Commander Mo Kang met them inside the first courtyard with 20 officers behind him. The war drums had stopped, but the air still vibrated from their echo. Snow fell through the open spaces between fortress towers and vanished before touching the stone, melted by some hidden heat rising from the mountain. The fortress was colder than the road and hotter beneath the skin. A sealed wound. Lin Yao felt the Heavenly Bell mark pulse in warning. Mo Kang bowed to her at last. It was shallow. Guardian Princess. Commander. Stormbreak welcomes Imperial aid. Wei Han's expression did not change, but several of his soldiers shifted behind him. Everyone heard the lie. Mo Kang continued, as if lies were simply another kind of mortar. The dragon seal's disturbance appears to have been triggered by your arrival. Until we understand why, I must ask that you surrender any ritual objects from the capital. Wei Han's voice cut in. No. Mo Kang looked at him. General Wei, you return to Stormbreak after years in the capital and immediately refuse Fortress Protocol. You refuse to open the gate to Imperial Command. I protected the West. From whom? From everyone who remembers us only when something breaks. The courtyard went silent. The officers behind Mo Kang watched Wei Han closely. Not with hatred. With measurement. Lin Yao understood then that Wei Han's return was not simple here. In the capital, he had been a disgraced general restored by truth. In Stormbreak, he was the son of a dead duke, raised away from the fortress after disaster, returning with imperial authority and a princess whose power had cracked the Dragon Gate. Some would see him as heir. Some as outsider. Some as threat. Mo Kang likely saw all three. Lin Yao stepped between the two men before the silence became a blade. The prisoner, she said. Mo Kang's eyes moved to her. What of her? I want to see her. Impossible. I was not asking for the weather. One of Wei Han's soldiers coughed behind her. Mo Kang did not appreciate it. Shen Qianxue is condemned under Western military law. She murdered Duke Wei Zhen, betrayed Stormbreak's lower gate, and caused the deaths of 400 soldiers. Wei Han's jaw tightened. Lin Yao looked at him. He was very still. Too still. This was not the controlled discipline she knew from the capital. This was something locked behind teeth. And yet she is alive, Lin Yao said. Mo Kang's expression closed. Execution was delayed. For 3 years. No answer. Useful. Lin Yao continued. The dragon seal reacted to her. If she is tied to the artifact, I will see her. The West is not the capital, Your Highness. Good, Lin Yao said. Then perhaps people here say what they mean faster. Mo Kang's eyes hardened. Wei Han looked as if he wanted to intervene, and also wanted to see Mo Kang lose the argument. Before the commander could answer, another tremor passed through the fortress. This one came from below. Deep below. Green gold light flashed between the stones of the courtyard. Soldiers stepped back. Horses screamed in the outer ring. Then every officer present heard a voice. Not loud. Not human. Bring her. The words rolled through the stone. Mo Kang turned pale. Lin Yao looked at him. The West speaks quickly. No one laughed. But Wei Han looked away for a moment, and she suspected that was the closest he could safely come. The snow prison lay under the mountain. Not beneath the fortress cells where drunk soldiers and captured spies were kept. Below those, below the old storage caverns, below the frozen cisterns, down a stair cut into black stone that sweated warm mist despite the cold above. Only Mo Kang, Wei Han, Lin Yao, and 6 guards descended. No one spoke. The deeper they went, the more the air changed. It smelled of iron, snow, and something sharp like lightning before a storm. The walls were carved with dragon scales, each scale the size of a palm, each one etched with names. Wei Han touched one as they passed. His face tightened. Soldiers, Lin Yao asked quietly. Dead guardians of the Western Pass. Your father. His name should be near the gate. Should be. Lin Yao noticed the word. Mo Kang did too. At the bottom of the stair stood a door made entirely of ice. Inside it sat a woman chained to the floor. Shen Qianxue did not look like a murderer from a soldier's cautionary tale. That was Lin Yao's first thought. Her second was that cautionary tales were usually written by the people who survived to blame someone else. Qianxue wore thin gray prison robes, though the cell was cold enough to kill an ordinary person in an hour. Her black hair had been cut unevenly at her shoulders. Frost clung to her eyelashes. Her wrists were locked in iron cuffs carved with dragon scale patterns. But her posture was straight. Her eyes, when she opened them, were clear. Cold. Amused. They went first to Wei Han. Little General, she said. Wei Han's sword left its sheath. The guards raised their spears. Qianxue smiled. Still dramatic. Wei Han stepped forward. Lin Yao caught his wrist. He stopped because she held him, not because he wanted to. His voice was low enough to be almost unrecognizable. You do not get to speak to me. Qianxue looked at Lin Yao's hand on his wrist. You brought supervision, wise. Lin Yao studied her. 3 years in an ice cell. Accused of murdering the father of the man, now pointing a sword at her. And she sounded bored. Either Shen Qianxue was innocent, mad, or far more dangerous than the chains suggested. Possibly all three. Lin Yao released Wei Han slowly. I am Lin Yao. Qianxue's gaze shifted to her. The Bell Girl. Guardian Princess. Titles travel faster than truth. Usually. Qianxue's smile changed. Interest. Small but real. Mo Kang stepped forward. Prisoner, the dragon seal reacted to your blood. Explain. Qianxue leaned back against the ice wall. No. One guard struck her across the face. Wei Han did not move. Lin Yao did. The golden chain mark flashed beneath her sleeve. The guard flew backward and slammed into the opposite wall. Every spear turned toward Lin Yao. The ice door cracked. Mo Kang's face darkened. Your Highness. Lin Yao looked at the fallen guard, then at the commander. Touch her again before I finish asking questions, and I will assume you fear her answers. Qianxue laughed softly. Blood ran from the corner of her mouth. Oh, she said, I like this one. Wei Han looked at Lin Yao as if she had personally insulted him. She killed my father. Then we should find out why the dragon seal wants her alive. It does not want, it is an artifact. From beneath the cell, the dragon voice rumbled again. Wrong. The chains around Qianxue's wrists turned green gold. Mo Kang shouted back. Too late. The ice beneath Qianxue cracked in the shape of a dragon's eye. Light rose from the fracture and wrapped around her right hand. Qianxue's amusement vanished. For the first time, she looked afraid. No, she whispered. The light burned through the iron cuff. A mark appeared on her palms. A coiled dragon around a square seal. The same symbol Lin Yao had seen in the Heavenly Bell's vision. Every guard dropped to one knee. Not willingly. Forced by pressure. Mo Kang staggered but remained standing, face twisted. Wei Han stared at the mark as if it had stabbed him. Lin Yao felt the Heavenly Bell answer from her blood. Not with warning. With recognition. The Western Dragon Seal had chosen. Not Wei Han. Not Commander Mo Kang. Not the loyal fortress officers. The condemned woman in chains. Qianxue looked at the glowing mark on her palm with naked horror. Then she looked at Wei Han. For the first time, her voice lost its edge. This is not mercy. Wei Han raised his sword again. His hands were shaking. No, he said, this is a mistake. The dragon voice filled the prison. The Oathbreaker returns, the false gate opens, the condemned carries the storm. The ice door shattered. Wind roared through the cell. And above Stormbreak Fortress, the snowstorm turned green. Chapter 4, The General's Hatred. The snowstorm above Stormbreak Fortress turned green. Not pale green like spring leaves. Dragon green. Old jade under lightning. The color spread through the clouds in twisting veins, casting the fortress walls, the soldiers, and the shattered snow prison in an unnatural glow. The wind screamed down the stairwell as if the mountain itself had opened its mouth. Inside the prison cell, everyone stared at Shen Qianxue's palm. The mark of the Western Dragon Seal burned there, clear and impossible. A coiled dragon wrapped around a square seal. The same symbol that had appeared in Lin Yao's vision. The same symbol hidden beneath the painted Wei family crest at the main gate. The same symbol every soldier in Stormbreak had been taught to honor. And it had chosen the condemned woman in chains. Wei Han moved first. His sword came down toward Qianxue's marked hand. Lin Yao stepped between them. The blade stopped a finger's width from her shoulder. The entire prison froze. Wei Han's eyes were not the eyes of the man who had stood beside her at the furnace square. They were colder, narrower, filled with something that had waited too long for permission. Move, he said. Lin Yao did not. No. She killed my father. Then why is the dragon seal protecting her? It is wrong. The dragon voice rolled beneath the prison floor. Wrong. The word struck the walls like thunder. Every torch went out. Only Qianxue's palm lit the cell now, green gold and trembling. Wei Han did not lower his sword. Qianxue looked at the blade, then at him. Her face had gone pale, but her voice still carried that sharp edge. Lin Yao was beginning to understand was not arrogance. It was armor. If you're going to cut off my hand, little general, do it cleanly. Wei Han's jaw tightened. Do not call me that. Your father did. The blade moved. Not much. Enough. Lin Yao lifted her hand, and the golden chain mark flashed beneath her sleeve. The heavenly bell did not ring, but its pressure filled the cell. Wei Han stopped. So did the storm. Only for one breath. But one breath was enough for everyone to understand that Lin Yao was no longer asking. General Wei, she said quietly, if you strike her now, you are not avenging your father. You are silencing the only person the dragon seal wants us to hear. His eyes cut to her. You do not know what she did. No, Lin Yao said, and neither do you. That landed harder than the bell's pressure. Wei Han stared at her as if she had betrayed him. Lin Yao let him. She had learned in the capital that saving someone from hatred did not feel like mercy while it was happening. It felt like theft, like someone reaching into your chest and taking the blade you had spent years sharpening. But she also knew what happened if no one stopped the hand. The furnace. Always the furnace, in one form or another. Wei Han lowered his sword a fraction. Commander Mokang seized the moment. The prisoner has corrupted the seal, he snapped. Restrain her. The guard surged forward. Qianxue laughed once. It was not amusement this time. It was despair that refused to bow. The dragon seal mark flared. Wind exploded from the floor. Every guard flew backward. Chains tore from the stone. Ice shattered in great sheets. Qianxue dropped to one knee as the broken cuffs fell from her wrists. Blood ran from the old wounds beneath the iron, but the mark on her palm burned brighter. Mokang drew his sword. Kill her before the seal completes. Wei Han turned on him. No one moves. The command cracked through the prison with more force than the storm. The guards obeyed Wei Han before remembering Mokang outranked them inside Stormbreak. That mattered. Lin Yao saw Mokang notice it too. His face hardened. Qianxue slowly rose. For the first time since Lin Yao entered the cell, the prisoner's composure truly faltered. She looked at her freed wrists, then at the glowing mark, then at the cracked floor beneath her feet. I did not ask for this, she whispered. The dragon voice answered. No chosen ever does. Lin Yao felt that in her bones. The heavenly bell had not asked whether she wanted to be a guardian before showing her the price of becoming one. Choice came later. After the mark. After the wound. After everyone else had already decided what your life meant. Mokang pointed his sword at Qianxue. That woman murdered Duke Wei Zhen. If the dragon seal marks her, then the seal has been poisoned. Lin Yao looked at him. You say that very quickly for a man who kept her alive for 3 years. The prison went still again. Mokang's eyes narrowed. Careful, Your Highness. No. Lin Yao stepped toward him. I was careful in the capital. People died while I was careful. Now I prefer questions. Wei Han looked at her, still angry, still wounded by her interference, but listening. Good. Let him be angry and listening. Anger could still walk beside truth if it did not hold the reins. If Shen Qianxue murdered Duke Wei, Lin Yao said, why was she not executed? Mokang answered immediately. Her blood was tied to the old guardian rights. So you needed her alive. We needed to study the corruption. For 3 years. The West does not answer to your palace suspicion. No, Lin Yao said, but the dragon seal just did. Qianxue laughed softly. Mokang's face darkened further. Wei Han spoke without looking away from Qianxue. Why did you kill him? The question changed her. Not visibly to everyone, perhaps. But Lin Yao saw it. The way Qianxue's shoulders locked. The way the mockery vanished from her eyes. The way the glowing mark on her palm dimmed, as if even the dragon inside it waited for the answer. Qianxue said, "Open the Western Archive." Wei Han's voice dropped, "Answer me. Open the Western Archive and ask your father's own hand." Wei Han stepped toward her. Lin Yao caught his sleeve this time, not his wrist. A smaller restraint. A quieter plea. He stopped. Mo Kang said, "The Western Archive is sealed under military law." Qianxue looked at him. "Of course it is." The words were calm. But Mo Kang's hand tightened around his sword. There it was. The first real fear. Not of Qianxue's power. Of what she knew. Lin Yao turned to Wei Han. "Where is the archive?" Wei Han did not answer at once. His gaze remained on Qianxue. The woman accused of murdering his father stood free of her chains, marked by the artifact his family had guarded, and asking him to open the records of the night that destroyed them both. Finally, he said, under the Hall of Oaths. Mo Kang snapped, "General Wei, you have no authority to." "I am Duke Wei Zhen's son." The words cut through the commander. Wei Han turned slowly. "If my father's death is recorded there, I will see it." Mo Kang's expression became unreadable. Then he bowed. "As you command." Too easy. Lin Yao hated easy compliance from cornered men. It usually meant the trap had moved somewhere else. Qianxue seemed to think the same. As guards surrounded her again, this time at a distance, she looked at Lin Yao. "Belle girl. Guardian princess. If I die before we reach the archive, ask Mo Kang why the lower gate was opened from inside." Wei Han went still. Mo Kang's face did not move. But outside, the green snow struck the fortress walls harder. The western road had brought Lin Yao into another palace. Only this one was made of stone, snow, military honor, and lies that had learned to wear armor. Chapter 5, The Dead Father's Letter. The Hall of Oaths stood at the heart of Stormbreak Fortress. It was not grand like the capital's throne halls. No gold pillars, no silk curtains, no painted ceilings, only black stone, iron braziers, and walls covered from floor to roof with spearheads taken from dead soldiers. Each spearhead bore a name. Some were polished. Some were rusted. Some had been broken in battle and mounted anyway. Wei Han stopped before the western wall. Lin Yao followed his gaze. At the center hung one spearhead larger than the rest, blackened by fire and split down the middle. Duke Wei Zhen. Below his name were 8 words carved into stone. He died holding the western gate. Wei Han looked at those words for a long time. Qianxue, guarded by 6 soldiers, looked at them too. Her face gave nothing away. But the dragon's seal mark on her palm dimmed until it was almost invisible. Mo Kang stood near the entrance with his officers. He had permitted the archive to be opened, but he had also filled the hall with armed men. Not enough to look like rebellion, enough to make movement costly. Lin Yao admired the balance despite herself. Dangerous men often understood appearances better than honest ones. Wei Han approached the stone beneath his father's spearhead and pressed his bloodied palm against a carved hawk. Nothing happened. The hall waited. Mo Kang said, "Perhaps the archive does not recognize a general who has spent too long in the capital." Several officers shifted uneasily. Wei Han did not respond. He pressed harder. Still nothing. Lin Yao felt the humiliation travel through the hall like cold wind. The son of Duke Wei. Unrecognized by his own family archive. Qianxue closed her eyes briefly. That was not mockery. It looks like pain. Lin Yao moved closer to Wei Han. "May I?" He stepped aside without speaking. She studied the carved hawk. In the capital, false symbols had covered true ones. The Wei family crest at the gate had hidden a dragon beneath black paint. Perhaps this was the same. Lin Yao lifted her hand, but did not touch the stone. She listened. The heavenly bell mark pulsed once. Faintly, from deep under the fortress, the dragon seal answered. Not to her. Through her. A resonance between artifacts. Bell asking. Dragon refusing. Lin Yao looked at the carved words beneath Wei Zhen's name. He died holding the western gate. Too clean. Too heroic. Truth was rarely so polished. Lin Yao turned to Qianxue. You open it. The room erupted. Mo Kang barked, impossible. Wei Han's face went cold. No. Qianxue gave a faint smile. Listened to them, finally united. Lin Yao did not look away from her. You said the archive would answer his father's hand. If Wei Han's blood does not open it, perhaps the archive is not asking for blood. Qianxue's expression changed. Something like grief moved through it and vanished. It asks for witness, she said. Wei Han stared at her. How do you know that? Qianxue lifted her marked hand. Because your father told me. The hall went silent. Wei Han looked as if she had struck him. Lin Yao stepped aside. Qianxue walked forward slowly, guards following with spears raised. She stopped before the stone beneath Duke Wei Zhen's spearhead and placed her glowing palm over the carved words. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the final word changed. Gate. The stone cracked through the word. The inscription rearranged itself. He died holding the western lie. Wei Han stopped breathing. The archive opened. A section of wall slid inward, revealing a narrow chamber lit by green-gold flame. Inside were shelves of sealed military records, old battle maps, dragon-scale tablets, and one black iron box marked with the Wei family crest. Mo Kang moved. Not toward the chamber. Toward Qianxue. Wei Han intercepted him. Their swords met with a crash that rang through the Hall of Oaths. Mo Kang's eyes burned. Stand down. Wei Han's voice was low. Why? That woman is manipulating the archive. Then why did you reach for her instead of the records? The officers behind Mo Kang shifted. Doubt. Small. But alive. Mo Kang saw it and stepped back. Search it then, see what ghosts you choose to believe. Lin Yao entered the archive first. The green-gold flames did not burn. They moved away from her, recognizing the bell mark but refusing obedience. Good. The dragon seal had pride. That meant it could be negotiated with. Or insulted. Possibly both. Wei Han went directly to the black iron box. His hands were steady when he lifted it, but Lin Yao could see the tension in his shoulders. He had spent years carrying the story of his father's death like armor. Now every hinge on that box threatened to turn armor into weight. The lock opened to Qianxue's marked hand. Inside was a letter wrapped in oilcloth. The seal was broken. Someone had read it before. Mo Kang, perhaps. Or Qianxue. Or Duke Wei himself before hiding it where only witness could open the truth. Wei Han unfolded the letter. Lin Yao watched his face as he read. At first, nothing changed. Then the blood drained from his mouth. His hand tightened on the paper until it crumpled. Qianxue looked away. Lin Yao took the letter gently before he tore it by accident. The handwriting was bold and spare. A soldier's hand. Not courtly. Not decorative. To my son, if the archive opens for you. If you are reading this, then the lie lived longer than I did. The western gate did not fall because Shen Qianxue betrayed us. It fell because I ordered it opened. Wei Han made a sound like he had been cut. Lin Yao kept reading. The lower rift had already broken. The dragon storm entered the foundation. 300 soldiers were trapped beneath the western wall. If the gate remained sealed, they would become vessels before dawn. I opened the gate to kill the infected before the curse reached the upper fortress. I chose the fortress over the men beneath it. I chose command over mercy. And the dragon seal rejected me for it. Lin Yao's throat tightened. The letter continued. Qianxue saw what I could not. She entered the lower gate after me and burned the rift line with her own blood. She saved the upper fortress from my failure. But I was already infected. The curse entered through my oath mark. By dawn, I would have opened the fortress from inside. I ordered Qianxue to kill me before I became the dragon's puppet. Let the blame fall on her if it must. Let the Wei name remain useful if it must. But if you ever become strong enough to choose truth over inheritance, find her. Ask her to forgive an old coward who made a young woman carry his honor like a corpse. The letter ended there. No flourish. No final blessing. Only his name. Wei Han. The Hall of Oaths was utterly silent. Wei Han stood as if the floor beneath him had vanished. Everything he had hated Qianxue for. Everything he had built around his father's glorious death. Everything Stormbreak had taught him to carry. Not all false. Worse. Partial. Partial truths hurt more than lies because they had roots. Qianxue spoke quietly. He was not a coward. Wei Han looked at her. His eyes were bright with fury. At her. At himself. At the dead. At the letter. You let me hate you. Yes. For 3 years. Yes. Why? Qianxue's mouth curved without humor. Because your father asked me to protect the Wei name, and I was young enough to think dying hated was easier than betraying the dead. Lin Yao understood that kind of loyalty. She also understood its cruelty. Before Wei Han could answer, a horn sounded from above. Then another. Then the fortress alarm. A soldier ran into the Hall of Oaths, breathless and pale. Commander Mo, the execution ground has opened. Qianxue went still. Mo Kang's face hardened too quickly. Lin Yao turned toward him. Execution ground. The soldier swallowed. The prisoner's sentence was scheduled for sunset if the dragon seal reacted again. Wei Han looked at Mo Kang. You ordered her execution before the archive opened. Mo Kang's voice was flat. I ordered the removal of a threat. Thunder cracked above the fortress. The green snow became rain. Then the rain turned upward. Qianxue lifted her marked palm, horror returning to her face. The seal is angry. Outside, over the execution ground, the storm descended like a dragon opening its jaws. Chapter 6: The Dragon Rejects the Sword. The execution ground lay beneath the western wall, where the mountain dropped into a gorge filled with frozen mist. Stormbreak soldiers called it the last step. Lin Yao understood why as soon as she saw it. The platform extended from the fortress like a stone tongue over empty air. Below it, the gorge vanished into cloud and ice. Iron posts lined the edge, each one carved with old military punishments: desertion, treason, oath-breaking, cowardice. At the center of the platform stood a block darkened by years of blood. Above it, the storm gathered. Green clouds spiraled downward, tight and furious, and within them moved the outline of something enormous. Not a full dragon, not yet. Only the suggestion of antlers, claws, and a long body made of lightning. Every soldier in the fortress had gathered where they could see. Some stood on walls, some in courtyards, some along the upper stairs. The West watched its own judgment. Mo Kang walked ahead with his sword drawn. Wei Han followed with the letter still clutched in one hand. Qianxue came beside Lin Yao, no longer chained, but surrounded by guards who seemed increasingly uncertain what they were guarding against. The dragon seal mark on Qianxue's palm pulsed with the storm. It hurt her. Lin Yao could tell from the way her fingers curled. But Qianxue made no sound. You do not need to keep pretending pain is boring, Lin Yao said. Qianxue glanced at her. You give strange comfort. I save better comfort for people who answer questions. Then ask, did Wei Zhen truly order you to kill him? Qianxue looked toward Wei Han's back. Yes. Did you want to? For the first time, Qianxue's voice went thin. No. Lin Yao said nothing. Qianxue continued, perhaps because silence was the only kindness she trusted. He was my teacher, not officially. Stormbreak did not train girls without bloodline rank, but he caught me copying sword forms behind the stables and told me if I insisted on stealing knowledge, I should at least steal the footwork correctly. Her mouth moved almost like a smile. It vanished quickly. He taught me the old guardian histories, the real ones before Mo Kang sealed them. He said the dragon seal did not belong to the Wei family. The Wei family belonged to the seal. There is a difference. Yes, one Mo Kang disliked. They reached the execution platform. Mo Kang turned to face the gathered soldiers. His voice carried through the storm. Stormbreak stands because Stormbreak remembers discipline. Last night, the condemned prisoner Shen Qianxue corrupted the dragon seal. This morning, she manipulated old records to stain Duke Wei's honor and divide this fortress. Wei Han stepped forward. That is a lie. A ripple went through the soldiers. Mo Kang looked at him sadly. It was an excellent performance. General Wei, grief makes men vulnerable. Wei Han lifted the letter. This is my father's hand. A forged letter, opened by a traitor's blood. You read it before today. Mo Kang's expression did not change. Wei Han's voice sharpened. The seal on the box was broken, you knew. Soldiers began whispering. Mo Kang raised his sword. I knew Duke Wei was merciful at the end. Too merciful, he let sentiment cloud command. That weakness killed hundreds. Qianxue went very still. Mo Kang turned toward her. And you helped preserve his lie. She lifted her chin. I preserved his choice. You preserved shame. The storm descended lower. Lin Yao felt the heavenly bell mark tighten on her wrist. The dragon seal was listening. And it was not patient. Mo Kang looked at Wei Han. Your father opened the lower gate. Whether for mercy or panic, the result was the same. He broke the Western covenant. The dragon seal rejected him because he forgot what command requires. Wei Han's face darkened. And what does command require? Mo Kang's eyes were iron. The strength to sacrifice the few before the many are endangered. Lin Yao inhaled slowly. There it was again. The furnace wearing armor. Different words. Different climate. Same altar. She stepped forward. You sound like Yue Qian. Mo Kang's gaze snapped to her. Careful, princess. No. That word was becoming a favorite. Lin Yao looked at the watching soldiers. In the capital, men said one girl's death could save a dynasty. Here, you say the lower fortress had to die for the upper one. Perhaps sometimes command truly does face impossible choices, but I have noticed something about men who speak of necessary sacrifice. The storm quieted slightly. Even the dragon seal seemed curious. Lin Yao's voice carried across the last step. They are rarely the ones placed on the altar. Mo Kang's jaw tightened. Some soldiers looked away. Others looked at the execution block. Wei Han looked at Lin Yao, and for a moment the fury in his face loosened into something like recognition. Mo Kang lifted his sword toward Qianxue. Enough. If the dragon seal believes this woman carries the storm, let the seal prove she deserves to live. The storm roared. The green dragon outline opened its jaws. Qianxue staggered, clutching her marked hand. Wei Han moved toward her. Mo Kang's officers blocked him. Lin Yao reached for the bell mark, but Qianxue grabbed her wrist. Don't. Why? The bell sound will worsen the storm wound. Lin Yao froze. How do you know? Qianxue looked up at the dragon in the clouds. Because that thing keeps shouting it at me. Then the storm fell. Not as rain. As memory. The execution platform vanished. Lin Yao stood in a battlefield of ice and broken banners. Stormbreak burned behind her. The western gate hung open. Men in Wei armor dragged infected soldiers from the lower fortress. Their veins glowed green. Some begged for help. Some laughed with voices not their own. Some called for mothers who were already dead. At the center stood Duke Wei Han. He looked like Wei Han would look in 20 years if grief sharpened instead of softened him. Blood ran from a wound beneath his armor. Green light pulsed there. Before him knelt Shen Qianxue, younger, bleeding, shaking with exhaustion. Open the upper evacuation tunnel, she begged. There are still living men below. Wei Zhen's voice was raw, and if the curse rides them upward, then I will burn it out. With what blood? You have already spent too much. With mine. Wei Zhen closed his eyes. The fortress shook. From the lower gate came a roar. Not dragon. Not human. The storm wound had opened. Wei Zhen looked toward it, then back at Qianxue. I opened the gate too late, he said. No. Do not comfort me with lies. I left them below because I feared losing the upper fortress. Then I opened the gate because I feared hearing them scream. Command made me cruel, then guilt made me reckless. Qianxue shook her head. You saved who you could. Wei Zhen gave a broken laugh. That is what survivors call failure when they need to sleep. Green veins spread up his neck. Qianxue saw them. So did Lin Yao. Wei Zhen drew his sword and placed it in Qianxue's hands. Before dawn, I will open the inner wall. The thing inside the rift already knows my oath mark. It can use me. No. Shen Qianxue. His voice became command. She flinched. You wanted the guardian truth. Here it is. Sometimes protection means killing the person everyone needed to remain heroic. Tears streaked through the soot on her face. Don't ask me this. I am not asking. The vision shook. Wei Han appeared beside Lin Yao. Not the younger Wei Han. The present one, dragged into the memory by the dragon seal. He saw his father kneeling before Qianxue. He heard every word. His face broke open. Father, he whispered. Wei Zhen did not hear him. It was memory. Cruel, untouchable memory. Qianxue raised the sword with both hands. She was sobbing now. Wei Zhen smiled at her. Tell Hanner I died holding the gate. But you didn't. Then tell him when he is strong enough to survive the truth. The sword fell. The vision shattered. Lin Yao was back on the execution platform. Qianxue was on her knees, gasping. Wei Han stood beside her, sword hanging loose in one hand, his face white with shock. The entire fortress had seen it. Every soldier. Every officer. Every guard on the walls. Mo Kang stood alone at the center of the platform. His jaw clenched. Then he laughed. A touching memory, he said, but incomplete. He lifted his sword and pointed it toward Wei Han. Duke Wei still broke the covenant. Mercy weakened the gate. Sentiment invited the rift. If the dragon seal rejected his sword, let it test yours. The storm above the platform twisted. A green-gold blade formed from lightning and fell point first before Wei Han. The dragon voice filled the last step. Son of the Oathbreaker, take the sword. Prove the Wei line still commands the west. Wei Han looked at the lightning blade. Every soldier watched him. Mo Kang smiled faintly. Lin Yao understood the trap too late. If Wei Han took the sword, he accepted the old covenant that had already rejected his father. If he refused, Mo Kang could call him unworthy before the entire fortress. Wei Han reached for the blade. The moment his fingers touched it, the storm struck. He screamed. The dragon seal did not welcome him. It judged him. Through the green lightning, Lin Yao saw the vision forced into him. Wei Zhen kneeling. Qianxue weeping. Mo Kang watching from the fortress wall. Watching. Not arriving too late. Watching. Wei Han saw it too. His head lifted through the pain. Mo Kang's smile vanished. The dragon voice thundered over Stormbreak. The sword remembers, the wall remembers, the witness hid the lie. Wei Han released the lightning blade and fell to one knee. Smoke rose from his hand. His eyes fixed on Mo Kang. You were there. The storm turned black at the edges. Mo Kang raised his sword. Below the execution platform, something answered him from inside the gorge. Not the dragon seal. Something beyond it. Something that had been fed for years. The Western Rift opened one eye. Chapter 7, Storm Trial. The Western Rift opened its eye beneath the execution platform. It was not an eye of flesh. It was a wound in the world. A long green slit appeared in the frozen gorge below, cutting through cloud and stone and storm. Light poured from it, but the light did not illuminate. It searched. It reached upward in thin threads, brushing the underside of the platform like fingers feeling for a lock. Every soldier on the last step froze. Even Mo Kang. For the first time, the acting commander of Stormbreak looked not like a man controlling a secret, but like a man watching that secret grow teeth. Wei Han knelt beside the lightning sword, smoke rising from his burned hand. His eyes remained fixed on Mo Kang. You were there, he said again. The words were quiet. The fortress heard them anyway. Mo Kang's expression hardened. I was commander of the upper wall, of course I was there. You watched my father die. I watched a duke fail his fortress. Qianxue stepped forward. The dragon's seal mark burned on her palm, throwing green-gold light across her face. For 3 years, she had carried blame like iron around her throat. Now the fortress had seen enough truth to make that iron crack, but not enough to free her. Not yet. You watched because you ordered the lower gate sealed behind us, she said. The soldiers began whispering. Mo Kang's eyes flicked toward them. Too fast. Too sharp. Lin Yao saw the calculation. A cornered courtier might retreat into polite denial. A cornered commander looked for the nearest battlefield. Mo Kang raised his sword toward the rift. The West is under attack. This is not the hour for old accusations. Lin Yao almost laughed. Men who built their power on old lies always became suddenly practical when truth arrived. The rift pulsed. Green light struck the execution platform. The stone vanished. Not physically. Not yet. But the world around them dissolved into storm. Lin Yao felt Wei Han reach for her, but the wind tore them apart. Snow rushed upward. Lightning fell sideways. The fortress walls stretched and twisted until they became ribs of black stone around a sky with no sun. Then she stood alone in the capital. The furnace square lay before her. Again. For one heartbeat, Lin Yao thought the rift had sent her back to Book One's ending. But the square was wrong. The heavenly bell hung above the furnace, cracked and silent. The emperor sat on his platform with his face hidden behind a golden mask. Wei Han stood among the court with expressionless eyes. And at the furnace mouth knelt Asu. Bound. Crying. Lin Yao's blood turned cold. The masked emperor spoke with 100 voices. Guardian princess, the capital is afraid again. The people require reassurance. Sacrifice one servant, and the dynasty will sleep peacefully. Lin Yao did not move. Asu looked up, tears running down her face. Princess. The court began to chant. One life. One life. One life. Lin Yao understood the trial. Not fear of death. She had faced that. Not hatred. She had surrendered its chain. This was something smaller and crueler. The fear that after all her resistance, the world would simply choose another victim and call her selfish for objecting. The masked emperor leaned forward. If you refuse, the people will suffer. Lin Yao looked at Asu. The girl sobbed. She looked real. Terribly real. But so had the furnace illusion in the ancestral hall. Lin Yao closed her eyes and listened. No bell. No heartbeat beneath the stone. Only the chant. One life. One life. One life. She opened her eyes. No. The chant faltered. The emperor's mask cracked. Lin Yao walked toward Asu. If the dynasty requires a victim to sleep, let it stay awake. The furnace went black. The court dissolved into snow. Lin Yao returned to the storm trial. This time, she stood on a frozen battlefield beside Qianxue. Qianxue was younger here, barely older than Lin Yao had been when she died in the furnace. Blood covered her arms. Her hands shook around Wei Zhen's sword. Duke Wei lay at her feet. Dead. Not gloriously. Not symbolically. Just dead. A man who had asked a girl to do an impossible thing and left her to survive it. Young Qianxue stared at the body, breathing too fast. Behind her, the lower fortress gate burned green. Mo Kang stood on the wall above, watching. Not shocked. Not grieving. Waiting. Then he shouted, she killed the duke. Soldiers turned. Young Qianxue looked up slowly. Her face was empty with horror. No, she whispered, he ordered. An arrow struck her shoulder. She fell to one knee. Mo Kang shouted again, seize the traitor. The visions shifted. Chains. Ice. 3 years of darkness. Qianxue in the snow prison, hearing Stormbreak children spit at her name during festival processions. Qianxue refusing to explain, because the one letter that could prove truth had been sealed away, and because some part of her had believed Wei Zhen's last order mattered more than her life. Qianxue hearing Wei Han return. Qianxue pretending mockery, because grief had become too old to hold openly. Lin Yao looked at the woman beside her. The real Qianxue stood rigid in the storm, face turned away from her own memories. You could have told them, Lin Yao said. Qianxue's mouth twisted. And be believed by whom? Lin Yao had no answer. The trial changed again. Now Wei Han stood before them. He was a boy of 12 in a training yard, holding a practice sword too tightly. Mo Kang stood behind him, one heavy hand on his shoulder. Your father died because weakness entered his household, Mo Kang told him. Remember that. Mercy opens gates. Hesitation kills soldiers. If you want to honor him, become harder. The boy nodded. The scene shifted. Wei Han at 15, beating 3 older cadets in silence because one mocked his father's death. Wei Han at 17, receiving news that Shen Qianxue still lived in the snow prison. Wei Han at 20, standing in the capital while court nobles called his family disgraced. Wei Han in the Hall of Oaths, reading his father's letter. Wei Han on the execution platform, reaching for the dragon seal's sword because some part of him still needed the old story to be true. The real Wei Han appeared in the storm. He saw everything. Lin Yao watched him understand the shape of his own hatred. Not wrong. Not baseless. But trained. Fed. Pointed. Mo Kang had not only hidden the truth. He had raised Wei Han's grief into a weapon and aimed it at the one person who could expose him. Wei Han looked at Qianxue. For the first time, there was no sword between them. Why did you not tell me when I came of age? Qianxue laughed, but there was no strength in it. From the snow prison. You could have sent word. Through whom, the guards who called me butcher, the commander who needed me silent, the fortress that carved your father into a hero and me into the knife. Wei Han flinched. Qianxue looked at him fully now. And if word reached you, would you have believed me? Silence. The storm answered for him. No. The trial shook. Mo Kang's voice rolled across the battlefield. Enough. The sky split open. The 3 of them were thrown back onto the execution platform. Lin Yao hit the stone hard enough to knock the breath from her lungs. Wei Han landed beside her. Qianxue fell near the edge, one hand gripping the cracked platform as green light rose from below. The entire fortress had seen fragments of the trial. Not all. Enough. Soldiers stared at Mo Kang with dawning horror. Mo Kang stood at the center of the platform, his sword lowered, his face carved from fury. Memories can be shaped, he said. Storms lie, prisoners lie, artifacts lie when corrupted. Lin Yao pushed herself to her feet. Then why are you afraid? Mo Kang looked at her. The commander smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. Because you still do not understand what waits below. He lifted his sword and drove it into the stone platform. The western rift opened wider. From below came the sound of hundreds of voices. Not spirits. Prisoners. Living. Screaming. Qianxue turned white. Mo Kang looked at the fortress walls, at the soldiers who had begun to doubt him, and gave them a truth ugly enough to become a threat. Yes, he said, I fed the rift, and because I did, Stormbreak survived. The gorge below filled with green fire. Chapter 8, The Mercy Blade. For a moment, no one attacked Mo Kang. No one even spoke. Confession had a strange power when it was too large to fit inside ordinary outrage. The soldiers of Stormbreak stared at their commander from walls, stairs, and courtyards, each one trying to measure the distance between the man who had led them through winters and the man who had just admitted to feeding prisoners to the Western Rift. Lin Yao had seen that look before. In the capital, when the Heavenly Bell exposed Yue Qian, people did not abandon lies immediately after seeing truth. First, they grieved the version of themselves that had believed. Mo Kang used that hesitation. He tore his sword from the execution platform. Green fire followed the blade. The western rift below answered him like a beast smelling blood. You judge me because you see the cost, Mo Kang shouted. You live because I paid it. The words struck the fortress hard. Some soldiers lowered their eyes. Others tightened their grips on their weapons. Qianxue rose slowly. You paid with other people's lives. Mo Kang's gaze snapped to her. And you paid with Duke Wei's. Wei Han stepped forward. The burned hand that had touched the lightning sword hung at his side, trembling. His other hand held his real sword, but he did not raise it yet. My father ordered his death. Mo Kang smiled. Your father ordered a girl to kill him because he could not bear the shame of his failure. You call that honor? Wei Han's face tightened. Qianxue's voice cut through the storm. No. Everyone looked at her. The dragon seal mark on her palm glowed brighter. He ordered me because he was infected, because he had minutes before the rift used him to open the inner wall. He was wrong to make me carry his name. He was wrong to hide the truth. But his death saved this fortress from becoming a gate. She lifted her marked hand. Yours fed the gate for 3 years. The western rift screamed. Mo Kang's sword burned green. Lin Yao felt the heavenly bell mark tight in warning. The bell wanted to answer. Not fully. Only a note. But Qianxue had warned her. Bell sound would worsen the storm wound. Lin Yao forced her hand to remain at her side. In Book 1, Power had been learning to command the bell. In Book 2, perhaps Power would be learning when not to use it. Mo Kang lunged. Not at Wei Han. At Qianxue. Wei Han intercepted him, and their swords met with a crash that sent green sparks across the platform. Mo Kang was older, heavier, and more experienced with fortress combat. Wei Han was faster, but his burned hand weakened his grip. Qianxue moved to help, but the dragon seal mark flared painfully. She dropped to one knee. Lin Yao caught her before she fell. What is happening? Qianxue gritted her teeth. The rift is pulling the mark. Below the platform, the green eye widened. Voices rose from it. Help me. Let me out. Commander, I served. Mother. It hurts. Lin Yao's stomach turned. The prisoners Mo Kang had fed to the rift had not simply died. The storm wound had kept pieces of them. The West was built on more than one sealed lie. Qianxue looked over the edge of the platform. Her face went still. I know that voice. Lin Yao followed her gaze. Within the green fire below, figures moved like shadows trapped under ice. Soldiers, prisoners, spies perhaps, criminals, deserters, people whose names had been written off as necessary losses. Among them, one figure pressed both hands against the light. A young woman with Qianxue's eyes. Qianxue stopped breathing. May. Lin Yao looked at her. Your sister. Qianxue did not answer. She did not need to. Mo Kang had not only imprisoned her. He had used the person she loved to keep the rift fed and keep her silent. Qianxue rose. The dragon seal mark blazed so bright that blood ran from her palm. Lin Yao grabbed her arm. Do not jump. Qianxue laughed once. It sounded almost exactly like Lin Yao's laugh in the furnace square before she surrendered hatred. That frightened her. He fed my sister to that thing, Qianxue said. Yes. Moved. No. Qianxue turned on her. You do not get to stop me. I do. Because you are the bell's chosen. Because I know what happens when the altar asks for your rage, and you call it justice. Qianxue's eyes flashed. Do not compare your court pain to this. Lin Yao's hand tightened. I was burned alive. The words landed between them. Qianxue froze. Lin Yao did not release her. I know exactly what it is to have your life turned into someone else's necessary sacrifice. I know what it is to want the world to hurt back. And I am telling you, if you jump into that rift now, it will not give you your sister. It will use her voice to open you. Qianxue shook. Below, the figure in the rift lifted its face. Sister, it called. So soft. So cruel. Qianxue's knees nearly gave. Lin Yao held her up. On the other side of the platform, Wei Han lost ground. Mo Kang struck his injured hand, then kicked him hard enough to send him sliding across the stone. Wei Han rolled before reaching the edge, came up on one knee, and lifted his sword again. Mo Kang turned toward the watching soldiers. You see, the capital weakens men, grief weakens men, mercy weakens men. Stormbreak survives because I do what others cannot. Then he pointed his sword at the rift. Who among you has lost someone to the pass? Who among you has watched soft decisions bury hard soldiers? I fed criminals, traitors, condemned spies. I gave the rift what the fortress could spare. Lin Yao looked at the figures trapped below. A young woman who looked like Qianxue. Old men. Boys. People in servant clothes. Not only criminals. Of course not. Altars grew hungry. The first sacrifice was always justified. The next became easier. Then one day, anyone inconvenient became fuel. Some soldiers lowered their weapons. Others did not. Mo Kang saw the split. His expression sharpened. Choose, he shouted, a fortress led by sentiment or a fortress that survives. The western rift pulsed. The storm above answered. Qianxue tore free from Lin Yao and stepped to the edge of the platform. For one terrible moment, Lin Yao thought she would jump. Instead, Qianxue lifted her marked hand toward the rift. May, she said. The figure below stilled. Qianxue's voice broke. If any part of you remains, forgive me for taking so long. The figure in the rift opened its mouth. At first, only the rift's voice came out. Sister. 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 Then the young woman's face changed. For one breath, her eyes cleared. Don't come down, May whispered. Qianxue sobbed once. The dragon seal mark flashed. May pressed both hands against the green light. He is using the old supply tunnels, under the East Barracks. Prisoners, years so many. Mo Kang's face twisted. Silence. He swung his sword, sending a wave of green fire toward the rift figure. Wei Han intercepted it with his own blade. The impact threw him backward, but the fire broke. That was the moment the fortress chose. Not all at once. Never all at once. Captain Luo, who had ridden west with Wei Han, raised his sword first. For the living. One of Stormbreak's younger officers hesitated, then raised his spear. For the living. Another followed. Then another. Mo Kang looked around as the chant spread. Not throughout the whole fortress. But enough. For the living. For the living. For the living. Qianxue turned toward Lin Yao. Her face was wet, but her eyes were clear. I cannot close it. Lin Yao looked at the rift. Not yet. Wei Han limped toward them, sword still raised. Then we open the tunnels and free whoever is alive. Qianxue looked at him. Something passed between them. Not forgiveness. Not friendship. Something more useful for now. Purpose. Mo Kang stepped back. Green fire wrapped around his sword arm. The rift's voices rose behind him. He smiled. You think prisoners are the secret. The platform cracked beneath his boots. No, they were only offerings. He lifted his burning sword toward the mountain. The real gate is under Stormbreak itself. The execution platform split in half. Mo Kang dropped into the green light. And the western rift began climbing toward the fortress. Chapter 9, The Rift Beneath the Fortress. The last step collapsed into the gorge. Stone broke away in huge slabs, dragging iron posts and old bloodstains into the green fire below. Soldiers shouted from the walls as the execution platform split down the center. Wei Han grabbed Qianxue with one hand and Lin Yao with the other, pulling them back as the edge vanished beneath their feet. For one breath, Lin Yao saw straight down into the western rift. It was deeper than the mountain. Deeper than the gorge. Inside it, storm clouds moved like water. Dragon bones floated in the green light, each one larger than a palace beam. Broken spears turned slowly around them. Banners from armies long forgotten drifted beside frozen lightning. This was not a demon pit like the one beneath the capital. It was a battlefield that had never stopped happening. Then the stone under Lin Yao's left foot cracked. Wei Han threw her upward, toward the remaining platform. She hit the edge hard, caught a broken iron post, and felt her shoulder nearly tear from its socket. Qianxue landed beside her, rolled, and came up on one knee with her marked palm pressed to the stone. The dragon seal flared. For a moment, the collapsing platform held. Qianxue screamed through clenched teeth. Move! Wei Han climbed over the edge and dragged Lin Yao to her feet. They ran. Behind them, the last step fell completely. The gorge swallowed it without a sound. Then sound returned as a roar from below. The rift was rising. Not physically like water. More like a wound, remembering where it had once spread and deciding to reopen along old scars. Green cracks raced up the fortress walls. Ice turned to steam. Watchtowers groaned. In the lower courtyards, soldiers shouted that the east barracks floor had split open. The old supply tunnels. May's warning. Wei Han turned to Captain Luo. Take 30 men to the east barracks. Anyone alive in those tunnels comes out. Captain Luo saluted and ran. Qianxue moved to follow. Lin Yao caught her sleeve. No. Qianxue's eyes flashed. My sister is there. Your sister, said the tunnels. She did not say she was alive in them. That was cruel. Lin Yao knew it as she said it. But cruelty and clarity sometimes shared a door. Qianxue looked at her with hatred. Lin Yao accepted it. If you run into the tunnels, the dragon seal goes with you. Mo Kang wants the real gate under Stormbreak. If he reaches it, every living prisoner becomes irrelevant. Qianxue's breathing shook. Wei Han stepped closer. Captain Luo will find them. She turned on him, and I should trust a Wei order. Pain crossed his face. No, he said, trust Luo. He is better than my family history. Qianxue stared at him. Then she looked away. Fine. The word sounded like it cut her throat on the way out. Lin Yao looked toward the center of the fortress. The Hall of Oaths. Beneath it, the archive. Beneath that, if Mo Kang's final words meant anything, the real gate. We go down, she said. Wei Han nodded. Qianxue wiped blood from her mouth with the back of one hand. The dragon seal is not fully awake. Can you wake it? Not safely. Lin Yao almost smiled. I am beginning to dislike that word. They fought their way through Stormbreak. Not against an army. Against a fortress coming apart. Walls that had stood for generations shifted under storm pressure. Doorways sealed with ice, then cracked open into unfamiliar corridors. Soldiers loyal to Mo Kang tried to block the central passage, while others fought them in confusion. No one knew which order still mattered. The rift used that confusion. Green light seeped into men who hesitated too long near the cracks. Their eyes glazed. Their voices changed. Some turned their swords on their own comrades. Others simply walked toward the lower tunnels with smiles on their faces. Lin Yao understood then how the rift had survived. It did not conquer first. It persuaded. The capital demon had promised immortality, revenge, safety. The Western Rift promised purpose. Every soldier who had ever wondered whether their suffering mattered could hear it whisper. Yes. Give me more, and it will all mean something. That was a dangerous promise in a fortress built on sacrifice. At the Hall of Oaths, Mo Kang's officers had sealed the doors. Wei Han did not slow. He ran straight at the entrance and kicked the left door hard enough to crack the iron brace. Qianxue lifted her marked palm. The crack turned green gold. Lin Yao touched her bell mark to the same place, careful not to call sound, only resonance. Bell and dragon met for one breath. The doors exploded inward. Inside, the spearheads on the walls trembled. Names glowed one by one. Duke Wei Zhen's split spearhead burned brightest. The floor beneath it had opened. A stairway led down where the archive chamber had been. Not old. Freshly opened. Mo Kang had known the way all along. Wei Han looked at his father's name. I am tired, he said quietly, of dead men leaving doors behind. Lin Yao looked at him. Then open this one for the living. He exhaled once. Then descended. The stairway under the Hall of Oaths was older than the fortress above it. The stone changed after the first 100 steps, from black mountain rock to green-veined white stone carved with dragons, bells, mirrors, swords, and other symbols Lin Yao did not recognize. 9 artifacts. Her wrist mark pulsed near one carving, a bell. Qianxue's palm reacted near another, a square seal coiled by a dragon. 7 other carvings remained dark. Lin Yao slowed despite the danger. These are the 9. Wei Han looked back. 9 guardian artifacts. Yes. Qianxue ran her fingers over one carving, shaped like a mirror, half submerged in waves. This one is awake. Lin Yao felt it too. Not here. Far away. East. Cold water. An eye opening beneath the sea. Then the stairway shook, and the vision vanished. Below them, Mo Kang shouted something in a language that was not court speech and not Western command. The dragon seal mark on Qianxue's palm burned so bright it lit the steps. Hurry! They reached the bottom. The chamber beneath Stormbreak Fortress was vast. Larger than the Hall of Oaths. Larger than the Furnace Square. Perhaps larger than the mountain should have allowed. At its center stood the Western Dragon Seal. It was not small like an emperor's stamp. It was a stone altar the size of a war carriage, square at the base, carved from green jade veined with gold. Around it coiled a dragon skeleton, not dead exactly, not alive. Its bones fused into the seal as if it had curled around it and turned to stone while guarding it. Above the altar, the rift hung open. A vertical wound of green storm light. Mo Kang stood before it. He had removed one gauntlet. His bare hand was pressed to the seal, and blood ran from his palm into the carved dragon's mouth. The seal did not welcome him. So he had brought help. Prisoners knelt around the altar. Dozens of them. Some in chains, some barely conscious, some wearing old Stormbreak uniforms. Lin Yao saw Captain Luo and his men fighting through a side tunnel, trying to free more prisoners before Mo Kang's loyalists could drag them forward. Qianxue scanned the prisoners with wild eyes. May. No answer. Mo Kang looked over his shoulder. His face had changed. Green veins crawled from his bleeding hand up his arm. His scar had split open, shining with storm light beneath the skin. You are late, he said. Wei Han raised his sword. Step away from the seal. Mo Kang smiled. You still think this is about command. The rift widened behind him. Within it, Lin Yao saw the dragon battlefield again. Bones, banners, endless storm, and something moving through it toward the open wound. Not demon ancestor Luo. Not one creature. Many. Dragon remnants. Old war spirits with no bodies left, only hunger and memory. Mo Kang's voice deepened. For years, Stormbreak has guarded the pass with scraps. The capital sends paper. The court sends excuses. The border buries sons. I offered the rift what the law had already condemned, and in return it gave us strength. Lin Yao looked at the prisoners around the altar. Children. Mo Kang's jaw tightened. Necessary mistakes. Qianxue moved. She reached him faster than Lin Yao expected, driven by the dragon seal's fury and her own. Mo Kang turned, and their hands struck the seal at the same moment. Green gold light exploded outward. The prisoners collapsed. Wei Han grabbed Lin Yao and pulled her behind a broken pillar as the blast tore through the chamber. When the light cleared, Qianxue stood on one side of the seal. Mo Kang stood on the other. Between them, the dragon skeleton's stone eye opened. The dragon seal spoke. Blood of witness. Qianxue shook but remained standing. Blood of command. Mo Kang smiled. Blood of oath. Wei Han's burned hand began to bleed again. The seal's eye turned toward him. Then Mo Kang plunged a dagger into the carved dragon's mouth. The dagger was made of dark scale. The same material as the dead messenger's token. Qianxue shouted, no. Too late. Mo Kang twisted the blade. The dragon seal roared in pain. The rift opened fully, and the acting commander of Stormbreak stole the seal's light into himself. Green gold power wrapped around Mo Kang like armor. Behind him, the first dragon remnant pushed its skull through the wound in the world. Chapter 10, The False Dragon King. The first dragon remnant came through the rift without flesh. Only bone, storm, and memory. Its skull pushed into the chamber beneath Stormbreak Fortress, antlers scraping the ceiling, empty eye sockets burning green. Lightning crawled through the gaps between its ribs. Torn banners hung from its spine like rotted wings. It opened its mouth. No roar came out. Instead, every weapon in the chamber trembled. Swords pulled toward it. Spears dragged across stone. Arrowheads ripped free from quivers and flew upward, striking the remnant's bone body one after another until it wore the fortress's iron like scales. Soldiers screamed and dropped their empty hands. Mo Kang stood before the Western Dragon seal, green-gold armor forming over his body from stolen light. The dark-scale dagger remained buried in the carved dragon's mouth, twisting the seal's power through him instead of through its chosen. His scar glowed. His eyes glowed. When he breathed, the rift breathed with him. "Stormbreak," he said, and his voice carried through every stone in the fortress. "Kneel." Some soldiers did. Not from loyalty. From pressure. The stolen seal forced their knees toward the ground, dragging on every oath ever sworn in the Hall of Oaths, every blood mark, every promise made to defend the Western Pass. Wei Han staggered but remained standing. So did Qianxue. So did Lin Yao, though the Heavenly Bell mark beneath her sleeve burned in protest. The bell wanted to answer. The bell wanted to ring. But the rift behind Mo Kang widened whenever the mark pulsed. Qianxue had been right. Bell sound worsened the storm wound. Lin Yao clenched her fist until her nails cut her palm. In the capital, calling the bell had exposed lies and sealed a demon. Here, the same power could tear the fortress open. The world was rude that way. It refused to let yesterday's victory become today's easy answer. Qianxue pressed her marked hand to the stone floor. "He is choking the seal." Lin Yao knelt beside her. "Can you take it back?" "Not while the dagger is in the dragon's mouth." Wei Han looked toward the altar. The dagger was 20 steps away. Between them stood Mo Kang, the dragon remnant, and a ring of soldiers whose eyes had turned the same green as the rift. Mo Kang smiled as if he heard the thought. "General Wei," he said, still trying to solve storms with a sword. Wei Han lifted his weapon. "Only the part shaped like your throat." Mo Kang laughed. He raised one armored hand. The dragon remnant moved. It struck with its tail, a whip of bone and lightning. Wei Han shoved Lin Yao and Qianxue aside before the blow landed. The tail shattered the pillar behind them and sent stone fragments across the chamber. One struck Lin Yao's cheek. Warm blood ran down her face. The Heavenly Bell mark flared. "Not now," she told it. The mark pulsed again, angry and ancient. Lin Yao understood suddenly why artifacts needed guardians. Not because artifacts were obedient. Because they were powerful enough to be wrong. She pulled her sleeve over the mark and forced herself to look away from Mo Kang. If she could not ring the bell, she had to do what she had done before the bell ever obeyed her. Read the room. The chamber was chaos. Prisoners lay around the altar, stunned but alive. Captain Luo and his men were fighting through the side tunnel, cutting chains and dragging people away from green cracks. Stormbreak soldiers split into 3 groups, those controlled by Mo Kang's stolen seal, those resisting him, and those too terrified to choose. Qianxue was connected to the true dragon seal. Wei Han was connected to the fortress oath. Mo Kang was using stolen command. The dagger was the theft. The oaths were the chain. Lin Yao stood. "Wei Han," she said, "stop fighting Mo Kang." He parried a strike from a controlled soldier and looked at her as if she had chosen a strange time to lose her mind. "What?" "He is using the fortress oaths. Break his hold there." "How?" Lin Yao looked toward the prisoners. "Make the soldiers choose who their oath protects." Understanding flashed across his face. Mo Kang noticed it too. "Do not listen to her," he commanded. The stolen seal pressure deepened. More soldiers dropped to one knee. Wei Han lowered his sword. Every soldier in the chamber saw it. Even those under Mo Kang's control struggled to lift their heads. Wei Han's voice rang through the chamber. "Soldiers of Stormbreak." Mo Kang's eyes narrowed. The dragon remnant turned toward Wei Han. He kept speaking. "You swore to guard the Western Pass. You swore to protect the fortress, the border, and the living under its walls." The word living carried. Captain Luo heard it in the side tunnel and shouted back, "For the living." Some soldiers answered weakly, "For the living." Mo Kang raised his hand, and the stolen seal forced silence down like a hammer. Wei Han stepped toward the prisoners. "If your oath demands you kneel while prisoners are fed to the rift, then the oath has been poisoned." Mo Kang roared, "You do not speak for the West." Wei Han lifted his burned hand. Blood ran from his palm, bright against charred skin. "No, I speak as the son of a man who failed the West and still tried to leave truth behind. I speak as a soldier who believed the lie because it was easier than grief. I speak as someone who almost killed the woman who carried my father's final order because hatred was simpler than listening." Qianxue went still beside Lin Yao. The dragon seal mark on her palm brightened. The pressure over the soldiers flickered. Mo Kang's stolen armor cracked at one shoulder. Lin Yao moved while everyone listened. Not toward Mo Kang. Toward the altar's left side, where fallen stone created a narrow shadow path. Qianxue saw her. Lin Yao held her gaze for one breath, then glanced at the dagger. Qianxue understood. She pushed herself upright. "Keep him talking," she whispered. "I am not sure Wei Han knows how to stop." Qianxue almost smiled. Then the dragon remnant struck again. Wei Han rolled beneath the tail and came up near a group of kneeling soldiers. "Look at them," he shouted, pointing to the prisoners. "If command means spending lives no one in power values, then command is only cowardice wearing armor." A controlled soldier began to tremble. His sword lowered. Mo Kang's face twisted. "Stand," he ordered. The soldier tried. Could not. Not because Mo Kang held him. Because his own will had entered the fight. Lin Yao slipped behind a broken pillar. The dragon remnant's skull turned. It saw her. Empty eye sockets flared. Qianxue stepped into its path and raised her marked hand. The remnant froze. Not stopped. Confused. The dragon seal recognized her, even through stolen pain. Qianxue's voice shook, but she did not lower her hand. "Yoren." The chamber went colder. Mo Kang turned sharply. Lin Yao paused. "That name. Dragon spirit Yoren. The ancient spirit bound to the seal." Qianxue said the name again. "Yoren, if any part of you is still inside the seal, listen." The dragon remnant shrieked without sound. The carved skeleton around the altar twitched. Mo Kang snarled, "You do not command dragons." Qianxue looked at him. "Neither do you." Lin Yao reached the altar. The dark scale dagger was buried deep in the carved dragon's mouth. Green lightning crawled up its handle. The moment she reached for it, pain shot through her bell mark. The rift did not want the bell near the seal. Good. Fear pointed at important things. Lin Yao wrapped both hands around the dagger. The pain doubled. The chamber vanished. For one breath, she saw the storm battlefield inside the rift. Dragon bones, dead armies, guardians standing in a circle around 9 artifacts. One guardian turning away before the war ended. Then Mo Kang noticed her. "No." He thrust his hand forward. The stolen seal armor sent a spear of green light toward Lin Yao's back. Wei Han threw his sword. It struck the spear midair, shattering the light into sparks. Lin Yao pulled. The dagger did not move. The rift screamed into her bones. It showed her the furnace. The court. The emperor kneeling too late. Asu bound at the altar. Every fear it had tested her with returned at once. Lin Yao gritted her teeth. "I have seen better nightmares." She pulled again. Qianxue slammed her marked hand onto the altar beside her. Wei Han pressed his burned palm to the other side. "Bell mark. Dragon mark. Border oath." The dagger loosened. Mo Kang screamed. Lin Yao ripped the dark-scale blade free. The dragon seal roared. Green gold light exploded from the altar, not outward this time, but upward. It struck the dragon remnant and shattered the stolen iron scales from its bones. Mo Kang's armor cracked apart. But the rift did not close. Instead, it widened. Without the dagger controlling the flow, the storm wound opened fully. Dragon remnants pressed against it from the other side. Qianxue looked at Lin Yao, horrified. You freed the seal. Lin Yao looked at the widening rift. And the wound. Mo Kang began to laugh. He stood amid broken stolen armor, bleeding, shaking, but smiling as green light crawled into his skin from the open rift. Too late, he said. Behind him, the dragon remnant lowered its skull. Mo Kang lifted both arms. If the seal will not crown me, he whispered, the rift will. The remnant entered him. Bone, lightning, and old war memory folded into his body. Mo Kang's scream became a roar. When he opened his eyes, they were no longer human. Chapter 11, Wei Han's Broken Oath. Mo Kang rose from the altar, as something between man and dragon. His armor was gone, but storm bone grew over his shoulders in jagged plates. Green lightning crawled beneath his skin. His scar had split completely, revealing light where blood should have been. When he flexed one hand, claws of condensed storm extended from his fingers. The rift behind him pulsed like a second heart. More dragon remnants pressed close, drawn by the opening. Qianxue staggered back from the altar, breathing hard. The dragon's seal mark on her palm no longer burned steadily. It flickered, wounded, freed from the dagger but not yet whole. Wei Han recovered his sword from the cracked floor and placed himself between Mo Kang and the prisoners. Lin Yao stood beside him. Her hands still shook from pulling the dagger free. The dark-scale blade lay on the ground near her feet, smoking. The Heavenly Bell mark throbbed beneath her sleeve. A single bell note could probably break Mo Kang's new body. It might also tear the rift wide enough to swallow Stormbreak. Lin Yao hated restraint. It felt too much like helplessness until it worked. Mo Kang looked at Wei Han and smiled with too many teeth. Look at you, he said, still standing between others and consequence. Wei Han's voice was calm. I learned from watching better people. Mo Kang's gaze flicked to Qianxue. Her, she hid in a prison for 3 years. Qianxue's face went blank. Lin Yao spoke before she could answer. She survived what you built. Mo Kang laughed. Survival is not virtue. No, Lin Yao said, but neither is command. The chamber shook as Captain Luo and the rescue soldiers dragged the last prisoners from the side tunnel. Some were barely conscious. Some cried at the sight of open air beyond the stairway. One old man kissed the stone floor. A boy no older than 12 clung to a soldier's sleeve and would not let go. Wei Han saw the boy. So did every soldier still wavering under the old oath. Mo Kang raised one clawed hand. Stormbreak, hear me. The rift is open because these outsiders shattered the old discipline. The prisoners you see are the price already paid. If you retreat now, their suffering becomes meaningless. The words slithered through the chamber. Lin Yao felt their danger. Not because they were persuasive to everyone. Because they were persuasive to the guilty. People who had allowed cruelty often preferred more cruelty over admitting the first cruelty had been wasted. Mo Kang continued, kneel to me, and I will bind the dragon remnants into an army. The West will never beg the capital again. No more late decrees. No more warm paper condolences. No more sons buried for emperors who do not know their names. Some soldiers looked tempted. Lin Yao could not blame them. That was the worst part. Mo Kang wrapped his poison around real wounds. Wei Han stepped forward. No. Mo Kang's eyes narrowed. No. No. Wei Han turned, not toward Mo Kang, but toward the soldiers. He drove his sword point first into the stone. The sound rang through the chamber. I am Wei Han, son of Wei Zhen. I was raised on the old border oath. I believed Stormbreak survived because obedience was harder than mercy. I believed my father died holding a gate because that lie hurt less than asking why he opened one. His burned hand trembled. He lifted it anyway. That oath is broken. The hall of oaths above them shook. Every spearhead mounted on its walls rang at once. Mo Kang snarled, "You have no right." Wei Han's voice grew louder. If an oath protects stone while feeding people to a wound, it is broken. If an oath demands silence from the innocent to preserve a dead man's honor, it is broken. If an oath teaches sons to hate the witness instead of the crime, it is broken. Qianxue looked at him. Very still. Lin Yao felt the dragon seal listening. So did Mo Kang. He lunged. Wei Han did not move. Lin Yao moved to intercept, but Qianxue grabbed her wrist. Wait. Mo Kang's claws stopped before touching Wei Han's throat. Not because Mo Kang chose to stop. Because the soldiers between them had moved. Captain Luo stood first, sword raised. Then one of Stormbreak's young officers. Then another. Then 10. Then 50. Not all, but enough to form a wall of living oath between Mo Kang and Wei Han. One soldier shouted, "For the living." The chamber answered, "For the living." The phrase rose through the fortress, carried by soldiers on the stairs, prisoners in the tunnels, officers in the Hall of Oaths, wounded men on the walls. For the living. For the living. For the living. Wei Han pulled his sword from the stone. Blood from his burned palm ran down the blade. Then hear the new oaths. The dragon seal flared. Qianxue gasped as the mark on her palm opened like a small sun. Wei Han spoke into the storm. We guard the pass for the living, not the pride of the dead. We obey command that protects, and we reject command that feeds the helpless. We honor sacrifice only when it is chosen, never when it is demanded from those without power. Lin Yao's throat tightened. There it was. The lesson of the furnace, translated into the language of soldiers. Wei Han lifted his sword toward the rift. This is the border oath reborn. The dragon seal answered. Not by choosing him. Not yet. But by withdrawing from Mo Kang. Green gold light tore out of his stormbone armor. Mo Kang screamed. The soldier's new oath pulled power from beneath his feet. But the rift still fed him. He staggered, then laughed through blood. Beautiful, he rasped, truly, but oaths do not close wounds. He struck the ground with both claws. The chamber split. A wave of storm fire surged toward the prisoners. Qianxue moved before anyone else. She stepped into the fire and raised her marked hand. The dragon seal blazed through her. The storm fire stopped inches from the prisoners. Qianxue's body bowed under the force. Lin Yao ran to her side. Qianxue. Do not, Qianxue gasped. Do not what? Let it use me. Lin Yao understood. The dragon seal was not gentle. It had heard Wei Han's oath. It had recognized Qianxue's witness. It had felt the rift widen and Mo Kang twist dragon remnants into war. Now it wanted a weapon. And Qianxue was the hand it could reach. Her feet began to slide backward. The mark spread from her palm to her wrist, then up her arm like green gold scales. Her eyes flashed dragon bright. It wants the rift burned shut, she said. Can it? Yes. At what cost? Qianxue smiled without humor. Guess. Lin Yao stepped in front of her, between Qianxue and the dragon seal altar. The green light struck Lin Yao's chest and recoiled from the hidden bell mark. Pain exploded through her ribs. She stayed standing. Yorin, Lin Yao said. The chamber went still. Qianxue stared at her. You are speaking to it. I am tired of artifacts, making decisions through pain. The dragon seal's presence turned toward her. Vast. Proud. Older than the dynasty. Unlike the Heavenly Bell, it did not feel solemn. It felt like a storm that had learned language and considered language inferior. Lin Yao lifted her chin. She is chosen, she is not fuel. The seal answered without words. Images flooded Lin Yao's mind. The rift widening. Dragon remnants devouring Stormbreak. The western pass collapsing. Armies of Stormbone marching east. The capital burning again. Lin Yao gritted her teeth. I know. More images. Qianxue becoming a dragon-marked vessel. One life spent. The rift sealed. Clean. Simple. Familiar. Lin Yao laughed once. The sound was cold. No wonder guardians keep failing. Every artifact thinks like an emperor in a crisis. The dragon seal recoiled. Wei Han stared at her, as if she had just insulted a mountain. She had. Precisely. Lin Yao continued. If the only solution you understand is consuming the person brave enough to answer, then perhaps you are not worthy of being obeyed. The chamber went silent. Even Mo Kang looked briefly impressed. Then the dragon seal roared. Not through the rift. Through Qianxue. She screamed and collapsed. Lin Yao caught her. The green gold scales retreated halfway down Qianxue's arm. Not gone. Paused. Qianxue looked up at Lin Yao, breathing hard. You angered it. Good. Good. Anger means it is listening. Mo Kang lifted his clawed hand again, gathering rift fire for another strike. Wei Han and the reborn oath soldiers moved to block him, but he had already grown stronger from the open wound. Qianxue forced herself to stand. It will help, she said. Lin Yao looked at her. Will it consume you? Qianxue looked toward the altar. For once, she did not answer with mockery. Only if I let it. The dragon seal mark settled around her arm, not as spreading scales now, but as a bracer of light. Qianxue raised her hand toward Mo Kang. Yorin, she said, voice shaking but clear. You want courage? Then learn mine. I do not burn prisoners, I do not eat the chosen, I do not call fear command. The seal's light sharpened. I will carry the storm, Qianxue said, but I will not become its mouth. The dragon seal answered. A dragon roar shook the chamber. This time, Qianxue did not scream. She smiled. Only slightly. Then she threw Mo Kang backward with one motion of her marked hand. He crashed into the base of the rift. The chamber shook. The rift widened again. Qianxue's smile vanished. We still have a problem. Lin Yao looked at the open storm wound and the dragon remnants pressing through. The dragon seal had accepted its chosen. But the wound itself still needed to be entered. Chapter 12, Qianxue's Dragon Mark. The rift did not close when Mo Kang fell. It breathed harder. Every pulse dragged more storm into the chamber beneath Stormbreak. The walls ran with green light. The dragon's skeleton around the seal flexed as if trying to tear itself free from stone. The air filled with the smell of lightning and old blood. Mo Kang rose slowly from the base of the rift. His new body was cracked, but not defeated. Storm bone had fused along his spine. One antler grew from the side of his head. Green fire burned in his chest where a human heart should have been. He looked less like a false dragon king now. More like a man who had allowed a battlefield to wear his skin. Qianxue stood before him with the dragon seal mark wrapped around her arm like a bracer of light. Her face was pale, but her eyes were steady. Wei Han and the soldiers of the reborn oath formed a half-circle around the prisoners, shielding them as Captain Luo's men pulled the weakest toward the stairs. Lin Yao watched all of it and knew they were still losing. Not in courage. In time. Every breath the rift remained open, more dragon remnants pressed against the wound. The seal could repel them, but not forever. Qianxue could command the storm, but she had only just been chosen. Wei Han had remade the oath, but oaths needed living hands to matter. And Lin Yao could not ring the bell. The one power that had saved the capital might destroy the West. She hated that almost as much as she respected it. The heavenly bell mark pulsed again, quieter now. Not urging. Asking. Lin Yao closed her eyes for one heartbeat and listened. The bell did not want to ring either. It wanted to anchor. That was different. In Book 1, she had used the bell to reveal and seal. Here, perhaps she could use the mark without sound, the bell's authority as a weight, a point of stillness inside storm. She opened her eyes. We have to enter the rift. Everyone looked at her. Wei Han said, no. Lin Yao sighed, you respond quickly. Practice. Qianxue looked at the wound with a grim expression. She is right. Wei Han turned on her. Do not encourage this. The rift is not only open from the side, something inside is holding it. Lin Yao nodded, a battlefield remnant. Older, larger, a command memory from the original Dragon War. Wei Han looked between them. You both said that as if it meant something simple. Qianxue lifted her marked arm. Yorin says the dragon seal can fight the remnants outside, but the root is inside the wound. Someone has to enter and break Mo Kang's claim from within. Wei Han's jaw tightened. Then I go. You would be swallowed in minutes, Qianxue said. You do not know that. The seal does. The seal also tried to eat you. And now we understand each other. Lin Yao looked at Qianxue. Do you? Qianxue's mouth curved faintly. No, but it sounded confident. Despite everything, Lin Yao almost laughed. Mo Kang roared and attacked. The moment broke. Qianxue stepped forward, sweeping her marked hand across the air. A wall of green storm light rose between Mo Kang and the prisoners. He struck it with both claws, and the impact drove Qianxue back 3 steps. Wei Han led the reborn oath soldiers in a counterattack, striking Mo Kang's flank and forcing him away from the altar. Their blades could not cut deeply through storm bone, but every blow backed by the new oath made his stolen power flicker. Lin Yao moved to the dragon seal. The carved dragon's eye followed her. I know you can hear me, she said. The seal answered, with a low vibration that made her teeth ache. I will anchor the rift from the threshold, Lin Yao said. Qianxue enters because you chose her. Wei Han enters because the oath is tied to the wound. But if you try to consume either of them, I will find a way to make the Heavenly Bell insult you forever. The dragon seal went silent. Then, very faintly, Lin Yao felt something like amusement. She decided not to examine that. Qianxue was thrown backward into the altar. Lin Yao caught her shoulder. Can you enter? Qianxue wiped blood from her lip. Can you anchor? Confidently, no. Honestly, better. Wei Han reached them a moment later, breathing hard. I dislike this plan. You dislike all plans involving me walking toward danger. Because you keep making them. Then walk with me. He looked at her. The words landed differently than she intended. Or perhaps exactly as she intended, and had not allowed herself to notice. Qianxue rolled her eyes. If the 2 of you are finished having a battlefield moment, the rift is eating the room. The floor cracked beneath them. Good point. Lin Yao placed her left hand on the dragon seal altar. Pain shot through her bell mark as foreign artifact power pushed back. She did not force it. She listened, as she had learned to do at Stormbreak's gate. Bell. Dragon. Seal. Storm. Different powers. Different tempers. Same purpose, if she could hold them in one line. Now, she said. Qianxue placed her marked palm beside Lin Yao's hand. Wei Han pressed his burned palm to the stone between them. The dragon seal opened. Not physically. The air in front of the altar split into a narrow green-gold path leading into the rift. Inside it, Lin Yao saw storm clouds, broken dragon bones, and a bridge made of old shields. Mo Kang saw it too. He screamed and charged. The reborn oath soldiers blocked him. Captain Luo shouted, for the living. The chamber answered. Qianxue stepped into the path first. Wei Han followed. Lin Yao remained at the threshold, one hand on the dragon seal, one hand over the hidden bell mark. The rift tried to pull her in. She refused. Not because she was afraid. Because anchoring meant staying. Sometimes the hardest part of a fight was not charging forward. It was holding the door while others walked into darkness. Qianxue looked back once. The storm light turned her face half gold, half green. If I become a dragon's mouth, cut me down. Wei Han answered before Lin Yao could. No. Qianxue blinked. He looked at her with all the grief and anger still there, but changed by truth. If you lose yourself, we bring you back. For a moment, Qianxue had no sharp answer. Then she turned away. Try not to make promises dramatically if you cannot keep up. Wei Han looked at Lin Yao. She is almost as difficult as you. Almost. Do not look proud. Then the rift swallowed them both. Lin Yao stood at the threshold and held the anchor. Immediately, the storm tried to tear her apart. Not her body. Her attention. It showed her the capital again, the emperor alone in a court full of smiling traitors, Asu opening a sealed letter and finding blood inside, the heavenly bell cracking while Lin Yao was too far away to hear it. Then it showed her Wei Han falling inside the rift. then Qianxue becoming a dragon of green fire. Then Stormbreak kneeling to Mo Kang. The images came faster and faster, each one baited with fear. Lin Yao closed her eyes. No. The anchor held. Inside the rift, Qianxue and Wei Han landed on the bridge of old shields. They stood beneath a sky full of dragon skeletons. Ahead of them, at the center of the storm battlefield, rose a throne made of broken seals. On it sat a figure in ancient guardian armor. Not Mo Kang. Not a dragon. A human woman with 9 artifact marks burned across her arms. She opened her eyes. Through the anchor, Lin Yao saw her too. The woman's gaze went straight to Lin Yao, though Lin Yao stood outside the wound. Another Bell Guardian, the woman said. Her smile was cold. How many of you must fail before the world learns? Chapter 13, Into the Storm Wound. The woman on the throne of broken seals looked older than any dynasty. Not in her face. Her face was young, almost untouched by time, with calm dark eyes and hair braided in the style of a forgotten court. But everything around her carried age. The armor she wore had been repaired so many times that no original plate remained. The cloak behind her was woven from torn banners. Around her wrists, 9 burned marks glowed faintly. Bell, dragon seal, sea mirror, moon blade, mountain furnace, star bow, ghost lantern, wind flute, and a 9th symbol Lin Yao could not clearly see. The rift bowed around her. Dragon bones floated in the storm sky above the bridge of old shields. Dead armies stood frozen in the distance, locked forever in the moment before collision. Lightning moved slowly here, like rivers of green glass. Qianxue stood at the front of the bridge, dragon seal mark blazing along her arm. Wei Han stood beside her, sword drawn, burned hand wrapped around the hilt. Lin Yao remained at the threshold outside the rift, one hand pressed to the dragon seal altar, one hand over her hidden bell mark. But through the anchor, she saw everything. The woman on the throne saw her too. Another Bell Guardian, the woman said. How many of you must fail before the world learns? Her voice reached Lin Yao directly, ignoring distance. Qianxue lifted her marked hand. Who are you? The woman smiled. I was the first to ask that question and live long enough to regret the answer. Not helpful. Lin Yao disliked ancient beings immediately when they spoke in riddles. It was a habit shared by demons, artifacts, emperors, and old records that had never been forced to explain themselves under deadline. We are here to close the storm wound, Lin Yao said. The woman's gaze stayed on her. No, you are here because another commander mistook sacrifice for strength. That is a common disease. Closing the wound is only a symptom. Wei Han stepped forward. Mo Kang opened the rift. Tell us how to stop him. The woman looked at him. A border oath remade in one breath. Brave, fragile, human. Wei Han's sword hand tightened. I asked a question. And I judged the question. Qianxue glanced toward him. I begin to understand why the artifacts are unpleasant. Lin Yao almost agreed aloud. Then the rift shook. Behind them, through the threshold, Mo Kang's roar echoed from the chamber beneath Stormbreak. His dragon remnant body was attacking the anchor. Each blow sent pain through Lin Yao's arms and into her chest. She gritted her teeth. We have very little time. The woman on the throne leaned back. Time is what guardians always believe they lack. That is why they accept the first cruel answer offered. The storm shifted. The bridge beneath Qianxue and Wei Han stretched forward until it reached the throne. With every step they took, memories rose from the shields beneath their boots. Not their memories. Older ones. Lin Yao saw the original Guardian War. 9 young guardians standing around 9 artifacts in a world burning under more than one catastrophe. Demons beneath capitals, storm wounds in mountains, sea eyes opening under drowned cities, ghost kingdoms pressing against mortal gates. The artifacts had not been created in peace. They had been created during collapse. The Heavenly Bell's first guardian stood with blood running from her ears after ringing it too many times. The Dragon Seal's first guardian knelt beside an army turned to stone by storm. The Sea Mirror's guardian wept seawater instead of tears. One by one, each guardian gave something to keep the world from breaking. Years. Names. Memories. families, voices, sleep. The vision moved faster. Victories became rituals. Rituals became laws. Laws became cages. The first guardians saved the world, and the world learned the wrong lesson. It learned that guardians were meant to be spent. Lin Yao's grip tightened on the altar. Inside the rift, Qianxue whispered, "No." The woman on the throne watched her. "Yes." Wei Han looked at the frozen armies around them. "Then you are one of them." "I was." "Which artifact?" The woman lifted her right hand. The burned marks around her wrist shifted until one symbol brightened. The unclear ninth mark. Now Lin Yao saw it. A crown made of broken chains. The woman smiled. The sovereign chain. The name struck the rift like a hidden bell. The heavenly bell mark on Lin Yao's wrist flashed painfully. Qianxue's dragon seal mark recoiled. Even Wei Han, who carried no artifact mark, stepped back. The woman continued, "The ninth artifact was not made to seal a wound. It was made to command the other 8 if their guardians failed." Lin Yao's blood chilled. "Command them how?" "Completely." The storm battlefield darkened. The woman rose from the throne. "We were losing. The world had too many wounds and too few hands. Kings begged us to save their thrones. Mothers begged us to save their children. Soldiers begged us to make their deaths matter. Every cry was true. Every need was urgent. So the ninth guardian made a proposal." The vision changed. 9 guardians standing in a circle. The woman, younger then, with the sovereign chain glowing around both arms. She spoke passionately. If guardians hesitated, people died. If artifacts argued, seals cracked. If each chosen had to consent, battles were lost. Let one will command all 9. Let the artifacts obey. Let sacrifice become efficient. Several guardians recoiled. Others looked tempted. The world was burning. Cruel answers always arrived dressed as speed. Lin Yao understood that too well. The vision sharpened. The Bell Guardian refused first. Then the Dragon Guardian. Then the Sea Mirror. The Sovereign Chain Guardian called them weak. She said mercy was vanity when measured against extinction. She said choice was a luxury dying people could not afford. Then she tried to command them anyway. The 9 artifacts clashed. The rift around Stormbreak was born from that clash, not from dragons alone. The dragon battlefield was not simply an old war. It was a scar from guardians fighting guardians. Qianxue stared at the woman. "You betrayed them." The woman's eyes hardened. "I tried to save more than they could bear saving." Lin Yao felt rage rise in her. Not the old hatred. Something cleaner. "You tried to turn guardians into tools. Tools save lives when hands are too slow. Tools do not choose." Exactly. There it was. The shape beneath every disaster they had faced. Yue Qian wanted to use Lin Yao as fuel. Mo Kang wanted to use prisoners as offerings. The dragon seal had nearly tried to use Qianxue as a weapon. And here, at the root of the storm wound, sat the first person who had decided consent was inefficient. The woman looked almost sad. "You speak like someone newly chosen. You still believe there is always a clean answer if you suffer nobly enough." "No," Lin Yao said. "I believe dirty answers should not be called holy just because cowards prefer them." The throne of broken seals cracked. Qianxue smiled slightly. "Bell Girl does have a gift." "Guardian Princess," Lin Yao said automatically. Wei Han, despite the rift and the ancient betrayal, and Mo Kang breaking the chamber outside, gave a short breath that might have been laughter. The Sovereign Chain Guardian's expression cooled. "Then prove your better answer." She lifted one hand. The bridge of shields shattered. Qianxue and Wei Han fell into the storm battlefield. Lin Yao cried out, and the anchor nearly broke. Outside the rift, Mo Kang struck again. The dragon seal altar cracked beneath Lin Yao's palm. The rift tried to pull her in. She held the threshold. Inside, Qianxue landed among dragon bones. Wei Han struck the ground beside her, rolled, and came up with his sword ready. Around them, dead soldiers turned. Not memories now. Remnants. The old battlefield had noticed fresh life. The sovereign chain guardian stood above them on broken air. "Close the wound," she said, "without spending anyone. Show me." The dead army charged. Chapter 14, The Seal Chooses Twice. Qianxue met the dead army with Storm in her hand. She raised the dragon's seal mark, and green lightning spread across the battlefield in a fan of jagged light. The first rank of remnants shattered into sparks. Broken shields spun away. Dragon bones hummed above her like a chorus of old thunder. Then the second rank came. And the third. Endless. The storm wound remembered every soldier who had died inside it. Every oath, every fear, every command screamed into lightning. It had no imagination, only repetition. That made it relentless. Wei Han fought beside Qianxue, sword moving with brutal efficiency. He no longer fought like a man trying to prove his father's story true. He fought like a commander counting every breath until the next soldier could live. But there were too many. At the threshold, Lin Yao felt every impact through the anchor. Mo Kang slammed into the outer side of the rift again. His dragon remnant body had grown larger. Storm bone covered half his face now. One arm had become a clawed wing. Soldiers of the reborn oath held him back in the chamber, but each strike threw men aside like dolls. Captain Luo shouted for another line. Prisoners dragged the wounded away. Stormbreak itself groaned. Lin Yao held the altar with both hands and forced the anchor steady. She could not help inside. She could not ring the bell outside. She could only hold. The least dramatic task. Possibly the most important. She hated that too. Inside the rift, Qianxue staggered as another wave of remnants struck. The dragon seal mark surged up her arm again, scales of light spreading toward her throat. The seal wanted more. It always wanted more when frightened. Qianxue gritted her teeth. No. The scales slowed. The sovereign chain guardian watched from above. You refuse power while drowning. Qianxue threw a spear of lightning through 3 remnants. I refuse a leash. You call consumption a leash, I call it completion. That explains your throne. The ancient guardian's eyes narrowed. Wei Han cut down a remnant reaching for Qianxue's back. Argue later. I fight better annoyed, Qianxue snapped. I noticed. They fell back toward the center of the battlefield, where the storm wound pulsed like a green heart beneath cracked stone. Lin Yao saw it through the anchor. That was the root. Not the throne. Not the dead army. The wound itself, opened during the first Guardian betrayal, widened by dragon war, fed by Mo Kang, and now held open by the sovereign chain's memory. They could not kill every remnant. They had to change what the wound remembered. Qianxue, Lin Yao shouted through the anchor. Her voice reached the rift thinly, like sound through water. Qianxue looked up. The wound remembers command and sacrifice. Give it a different memory. How? Lin Yao looked at Wei Han. He understood first. He always did when the answer was an oath. He drove his sword into the storm ground. Soldiers of Stormbreak, he said, though no living soldiers stood inside the rift, hear the new oath. The dead army hesitated. Only slightly. Wei Han continued, voice carrying across the battlefield. You were commanded to die. You were told your deaths were stones in a wall. You were told obedience made suffering meaningful. The remnants slowed. Their empty faces turned toward him. I cannot give you back what command took. I cannot make old orders clean. But I swear this, no oath of mine will feed the helpless to a wound. No soldier under my command will be spent to protect a lie. The storm heart flickered. Qianxue stepped beside him. I was made witness against my will, she said. I carried a dead man's honor and a commander's crime. I let silence become a prison because I thought loyalty meant disappearing. Her marked hand shook. No more. The dragon seal flared. But this time, not over her. Through her words. Qianxue lifted her palm toward the dead army. If you died by command, hear witness now. Your deaths were not proof that the commanders were right. Your pain does not belong to the men who used it. The first remnant lowered its weapon. Then another. Then 100. The sovereign chain guardian's expression changed. For the first time, she looked uncertain. Outside the rift, Mo Kang screamed as the power feeding him weakened. Lin Yao nearly collapsed as the anchor shifted. The wound was not closing. It was listening. The dragon seal's true light rose from Qianxue and spread across the battlefield. It touched the dragon bones, the broken shields, the remnants of soldiers who had been trapped in repetition for generations. Then the seal turned toward Wei Han. Not with the same mark it had given Qianxue. Something different. A line of green-gold light wrapped around his burned hand, forming not a dragon, but a broken spear reforged. Wei Han stared at it. Qianxue stared too. The dragon seal spoke through the storm. Witness carries truth, oath carries living command. Lin Yao exhaled. The seal had chosen twice. Qianxue as witness. Wei Han as oath. Not master and weapon. Not commander and sacrifice. Two duties. Separate. Equal. The sovereign chain guardian stepped down from the air. Divided power fails. Lin Yao's voice cut through the anchor. Concentrated power corrupted you. The ancient guardian looked toward her. You think so because you have not yet watched enough people die. Lin Yao held her gaze. I have watched myself die. It taught me not to volunteer others. The sovereign chain guardian was silent. Then Mo Kang broke through the outer anchor. His claw burst into the rift from the chamber side, tearing open a second wound in the battlefield sky. His dragon remnant body followed, huge and twisted, screaming as the weakening rift tried to reject him. No, he roared, I made Stormbreak strong. Wei Han lifted his reforged spear mark. You made it afraid. Qianxue raised the dragon seal. And hungry. Together they struck. Not with blades alone. With the new memory they had written into the wound. Stormbreak soldiers outside the rift heard the oath and repeated it. Prisoners in the tunnels repeated it. Captain Luo repeated it through bloodied teeth. Even some of Mo Kang's former loyalists, seeing the prisoners with their own eyes, raised trembling voices. For the living. For the living. For the living. The chant entered the storm wound. The dead army took it up without mouths. The dragon seal roared. Qianxue's lightning wrapped around Mo Kang's stolen dragon bones. Wei Han's oath mark pinned his human shadow. The wound rejected the command that had fed it. Mo Kang screamed. Not in fear. In disbelief. He could understand defeat. He could not understand being judged by the lives he had dismissed as spare. The sovereign chain guardian watched as Mo Kang's dragon remnant body cracked apart. Storm bone shattered. Green fire spilled out. For one heartbeat, the old commander appeared inside the monster. Human, scarred, terrified, tired. I kept the West alive, he whispered. Qianxue's face hardened. No, you kept your lie alive. The dragon seal closed around him. Mo Kang vanished into green light. The rift began to collapse. Lin Yao felt the anchor pull inward. Too fast. If it closed now, Qianxue and Wei Han would be trapped inside. Run, she shouted. Inside the rift, Wei Han grabbed Qianxue's hand. They ran across the battlefield as the sky folded behind them. Dragon bones turned to dust. Dead soldiers dissolved into sparks. The bridge of shields reformed under their feet one piece at a time, then vanished behind them just as quickly. The sovereign chain guardian remained beside the broken throne. Lin Yao looked at her. Come with them. The guardian smiled faintly. Still trying to save everyone. No, choosing not to spend you without asking. For a moment, something like pain crossed the ancient woman's face. Then she looked down at her burned chain mark. When the sovereign chain wakes, do not let it choose a coward with noble reasons. Where is it? The guardian's smile faded. Closer than you think. The rift folded between them before Lin Yao could ask more. Qianxue and Wei Han reached the threshold. Lin Yao pulled. The dragon seal altar cracked. The heavenly bell mark flared without sound. Qianxue and Wei Han fell through into the chamber beneath Stormbreak as the western rift closed behind them. The silence afterward was enormous. Then far above, the storm broke. Snow began falling normally again. White. Quiet. Clean enough to make the fortress look innocent for one breath. It was not. But it was alive. Chapter 15, The Border Oath Reborn. Stormbreak did not celebrate when the rift closed. Not immediately. Survival arrived first as disbelief. Soldiers stood in the chamber beneath the fortress, staring at the sealed space where the wound had been. Prisoners huddled beneath borrowed cloaks. Captain Luo sat on a broken step with blood running down one side of his face, laughing quietly because the alternative was probably collapsing. Qianxue lay on her back beside the dragon seal altar, one arm across her eyes. Wei Han sat against a cracked pillar nearby, burned hand glowing faintly with the new oath mark. Lin Yao remained standing for almost a full minute. Then her legs gave out. Wei Han tried to rise. Failed. Qianxue moved her arm from her eyes. If either of you makes this dramatic, I will go back into the rift. Lin Yao sat on the floor with as much dignity as possible. I was choosing to sit. Of course. Wei Han leaned his head back against the pillar and closed his eyes. For the living, he muttered. Qianxue turned her head toward him. What? I said the oath works better when the commander remains conscious. Then improve. His mouth curved slightly. Not quite a smile. But close. Lin Yao noticed. So did Qianxue. They both pretended not to. Above them, the fortress began to wake from terror into consequence. By nightfall, Mo Kang's loyal officers had been disarmed. Some surrendered when the rift closed. Some tried to flee through the lower tunnels and were caught by the same prisoners they had once guarded. A few took their own lives before questioning. Stormbreak's records were opened. All of them. Not only the Hall of Oaths. Supply ledgers, prisoner lists, execution orders, tunnel maps, dragon seal research sealed under Mo Kang's command. Names of those fed to the rift were read aloud in the central courtyard until the reader's voice broke and another had to continue. Qianxue stood through every name. When Mei's name was read, she closed her eyes. Only once. Then opened them again. Lin Yao stood beside her. Not touching. Some griefs did not want hands on them. Wei Han stood on Qianxue's other side, face pale but steady. When Mei's name echoed against the walls, he bowed his head. Qianxue saw it. She said nothing. That, too, was a beginning. The next morning, the soldiers of Stormbreak gathered in the Hall of Oaths. The old inscription beneath Duke Wei Zhen's spearhead had been removed. Not erased. Removed carefully and placed in the archive as a record of what the fortress had once chosen to believe. In its place, the wall remained blank. Wei Han stood before it with his injured hand unwrapped. The green-gold mark across his palm had settled into the shape of a broken spear reforged by a dragon coil. It did not make him the dragon seal's master. He had made that clear. Qianxue stood several steps away with the dragon seal mark around her arm, now quiet but visible. Soldiers who had once called her butcher could not seem to decide where to look. At her hand. At her face. At the floor. Shame made people awkward before it made them better. Lin Yao watched from the side of the hall. She had been offered the central place. She refused. This was not her oath to speak. Wei Han faced the soldiers. My father did not die holding the western gate. The words landed hard, even after everything they had seen. Truth often needed to be heard more than once before it stopped feeling like an attack. Wei Han continued, he opened it. He made a terrible choice. He made another when he asked Shen Qianxue to kill him and carry his shame. He saved lives. He failed others. Both are true. Qianxue looked at him sharply. He did not look away from the soldiers. Stormbreak will not build honor by cutting truth into smaller pieces. Captain Luo stepped forward with a chisel and hammer. Wei Han placed his marked hand against the blank stone. Green-gold light spread from his palm, forming new characters. Not long. Only 3 lines. We guard the pass for the living. No oath shall feed the helpless. No truth shall be buried for honor. The words burned into the wall. Every spearhead in the hall rang once. Not loudly. Enough. Qianxue's dragon seal mark pulsed an answer. Then, one by one, the soldiers of Stormbreak knelt. Not to Wei Han. Not to Lin Yao. Not even to Qianxue. To the oath. Qianxue looked uncomfortable enough that Lin Yao almost enjoyed it. Later, after the hall emptied, Qianxue remained before Duke Wei Zhen's spearhead. Wei Han approached slowly. Lin Yao, who had intended to leave them privacy, stayed just close enough to intervene if one of them became stupid. Personal growth was promising. Not reliable. Wei Han stopped beside Qianxue. I hated you, he said. I noticed. I wanted to kill you. Also noticed. He exhaled. I am sorry. Qianxue looked at the spearhead. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she replied, I let you hate me because it was easier than fighting the entire fortress alone. Wei Han's jaw tightened. That does not make it fair. No. To either of us. She looked at him then. The silence between them was not forgiveness. Lin Yao was glad. Forgiveness, rushed for narrative convenience, often rotted later. This was better. Honest discomfort. Room for something true to grow, without being named too early. Qianxue finally said, Your father was brave. Wei Han's eyes lowered. And wrong. Yes. He nodded once, as if accepting both words into the same grave. Thank you for telling me. Qianxue's expression shifted. No mockery. No armor. Just grief, startled by being acknowledged. You are welcome, little general. Wei Han closed his eyes. I still hate that. Good. Lin Yao decided that counted as progress and left before either noticed her listening. 3 days later, Stormbreak sent its first honest report to the capital in years. It was long. Very long. Lin Yao approved. Short reports hid too much. The report named Mo Kang's crimes, listed the prisoners recovered from the tunnels, restored Shen Qianxue's rank as Western Guardian Witness, and recognized Wei Han's new border oath. It also requested grain, physicians, engineers, and auditors from the capital. The last request amused Lin Yao. Nothing frightened corrupt officials like auditors with imperial backing and fresh moral outrage. The emperor's reply arrived faster than expected. Not by ordinary messenger. By bell echo. At sunset, the heavenly bell mark on Lin Yao's wrist pulsed, and a thread of golden sound formed words only she could hear. The capital remains unstable. The empress's faction moves quietly. Prince Rui lives but does not wake. The astronomical bureau's lower vault was empty. Lin Yao stood on Stormbreak's highest wall as the message faded. Snow stretched west into mountains. Behind her, the dragon seal slept beneath the fortress, no longer silent, no longer screaming. Wei Han approached with a cloak and handed it to her without comment. This time, she took it. Bad news, he asked. The capital is still the capital. So yes. Qianxue joined them a moment later, wearing a dark cloak and looking annoyed at the existence of weather. The dragon seal is restless, she said. Lin Yao looked at her. Because of the capital. No. Qianxue lifted her marked hand. Green gold light rose from it, forming a small image above her palm. Not the west. Water. Endless dark water beneath a moonless sky. Far below the surface, something opened. An eye made of silver glass. The image reflected not their faces, but 3 artifacts: the heavenly bell, the western dragon seal, and a mirror beneath the sea. Then came a voice like waves moving through a tomb. The sea mirror has opened its eye. Lin Yao felt her bell mark answer. Qianxue's dragon mark answered. Far below Stormbreak, the seal gave one low pulse. Wei Han looked between them. I assume that is not good. Lin Yao watched the silver eye vanish. In the distance, beyond mountains, beyond capital, beyond any map the court had shown her, the eastern sea waited. Book 1 had ended in fire. Book 2 had ended in snow. Book 3, it seemed, would begin underwater.